What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Logical, Plausible, Probable. We got another hopefully epic after show to come at you after a rather entertaining, all over the place, epic back and forth between a variety of folks in personality and delivery style, shall we say. It was very interesting over on the modern day debate. We had TJump and Aron versus Cliffe and Stuart on Is There a Soul? I'm not really sure how much of the debate was actually about really asking the questions about what is the soul, but hey, overall I thought it was pretty good, and it was fun and rather enjoyable to partake in. So, folks, let's talk about who won, who lost, what were the best lines, the best comebacks, and overall what you guys think were the best moments of the debate. So we got three folks so far. Hey, if you want to get in on this, the link is in the description. And I think I posted in the live chat as well. But P Mars was the first in line. So come on in to the show and tell us about what your thoughts were.
Well, I thought Aron got pretty angry at the end there. That was pretty entertaining, I guess. I kind of just caught the end of the debate, so maybe you want to go to someone else.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I think I was joking that we might have to worry about spontaneous combustion there towards the end, because he was definitely starting to get pretty triggered.
Yeah, it's like he was so adamant on making the other person believe what he believes, where the other side was like, okay, we can agree to disagree. And I think like when you're really like Aron showed a real insecurity in his own beliefs by getting upset at the fact that they didn't accept his scientific evidence or whatever that he presented.
I would agree with that. And Muggles, you were just trying to join. The only way I can let you in is if you have at least your microphone activated. Otherwise, I cannot let you in. So make sure you got that going on. Ocho, what's up, man? You were next. What's going on, brother? How are you doing?
What's up, guys? How you doing? That was a good debate. It was good. I mean, a lot of action between actually both sides. I didn't expect the yes side to be so defensive, so on it. They were kind of prepared for his barkiness, you know what I mean? And then on top of that, they hit him with a lot of things that are just true, a lot of things that are just not material. I mean, it's just a fact that a choice is not material. It's just a fact that, immorality is not material. It's just a fact. There are certain things that are just not material. Numbers. It's just not that you can't touch 7. You can look at 7 objects. You just can't touch 7. You know what I mean? It's just food for thought. I honestly thought they defended themselves well. The questions were good at the end. It was a good debate.
Are you ready for me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. On mic. I was saying, is it Joachim or Joachim? I don't want to murder your name.
Yeah, I'm Joachim. But Joachim. I mean, if you can call me Jay, if it's easier, it just doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, there's Joachim. I know there's different ways to pronounce it. I didn't want to mess it up.
No, there are. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I'm not.
So, what were your thoughts, man? What'd you think about the debate? Was it what you thought it was going to be? What was the best one-liners? Like, what did you think about it overall?
To be honest, I missed a good portion of it. I mostly caught the end, like P Mars. Honestly, I feel differently about people getting angry in a debate. To me, it isn't an indication of winning or losing. I genuinely don't care. I feel like you really have to listen to the arguments and parse the arguments, and that is a better way to tell if somebody won or not. I don't think emotions are really the determining factor. I had fun listening to it. I thought TJump's mic was too low. I don't think that I learned anything about the soul. I would really like to understand these things. Like, I wish I could. I can go get a textbook on how the brain works, and I can learn about what neurons do and what synapses are, but there's no information. There's nothing useful about what a soul does or how it works, how it interacts with the world. I'd love to know that, like what the mechanism is for how the soul interacts with other things. It's immaterial, interacting with the material world. That's fantastic. How does that work?
Well, I think that's one of the interesting questions. It's being discussed now.
It's interesting that it's a question, right? It's not. We don't have an answer.
It's a question.
We don't have answers for a million things about the soul. Like when you're talking about a soul, you might as well be talking about a glove. A glove. Do y'all have gloves? I have 5 gloves. You can't see them. You can't touch them. I don't really know exactly what they are, but they interact with the material world in a way that I don't know, and they're fantastic, and everybody should get one. All we can really look at is what the Bible says about what a soul is. And it's funny because if you've ever spent any time doing that, you'll find very quickly that the Bible talks about what a nephesh is, right? What a soul is. It talks about it in a very different way than the way a lot of Christians use it. And for that reason, there are a lot of Christians who don't even think of the soul in the same way as the Christians. They're physicalist Christians, like Dr. Glenn Peoples. I don't know if you've heard of him, but it'll say things like, it'll talk about a nefesh mut, right? Like a dead soul. And when it talks about a dead soul, it's really talking about a corpse. It says, don't touch a dead soul. And what it means in practical terms, what it means is don't touch a dead body, right?
Yeah, words can be used in multiple, with multiple contexts.
Right.
It's interesting how so many people like to, apply a hyper literal meaning rather than hyperbole or any kind of semantic alternative meaning in so many when it comes to existence. Everybody wants to be hyper literal. It's kind of interesting, and let's get back to that topic here in a few minutes. But we got a couple of folks who've joined us. Awkward Saints, you were next, man. What were your thoughts about the debate? Did anything stick out to you, or what do you want to share about the rather, in my opinion, rather entertaining verbal combat that just went down over on Modern Day Debate?
Interesting. Yeah, it was interesting, but it was all the same, from Aaron Rod, just as incessive verbal barfing. But I wish they would have touched on more stuff on the vibrationals and stuff like that. Everything has a vibration, and that vibration you can't feel or touch, but everything interacts like that.
Yeah, an interesting component of that is the actual the frequency that's being each cell in your body literally gives off a frequency. They can actually record that the audio of it, and I think it's rather fascinating that a healthy cell has a different sound than a sick cell, and a dead cell literally it sounds like white noise, the frequency that it gives off as it dies. And
I'm sorry, I missed that. Are you saying that the soul gives off a frequency that can be measured?
No, potentially, but no, we were referring to cells, your literal, each one of your cells, every living cell, it actually gives off a frequency.
Okay, but souls don't interact with the material world. They interact in some way, but we can't measure what that is in any way. It's interacting somehow, but we don't know how, or we can't measure it, and we can't tell how it's interacting. We don't know anything about the mechanism.
It's interacting right through your body right now. Me and you are interacting right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Your body is being controlled by something. Yes, you agree with that,
guys? We'll come back to this. No interruptions if I don't tell you it's your turn. Okay. Right now we gotta get first. We gotta get to the people that have come in, then we can come back to these topics. Jay-Z, what's up, man? You are up next. What are your thoughts on the debate, man?
Hey, man. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're good, man.
Sorry, I never. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd actually like to know your thoughts. Besides, it was entertaining. I'm still trying to formulate the Yeah, I guess entertaining for if you need a like gun to my head. I was like entertaining, but honestly a little bit disappointing that there maybe wasn't more. There just seemed to be a lot of talking past. That's fun, gets your amygdala activated and stuff. But I think that there's some low hanging fruit that was definitely at least missed by like Cliff and Co. But I think also on Aaron's part. But I want to know what you think about that.
Well, it's not my turn yet. I'll air my thoughts in a little bit, but we gotta get through everybody who's coming in here. So Henry, what's up, man? I'm sure I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the madness of tonight. You have the floor, sir. Henry, you awake? Henry, you're up, bro.
Oh, I'm unmuted now. Oh, okay. No, yeah, it was. I thought it was an okay debate. I don't really like Aaron Raw that much. He gets mad and angry like really quickly for no reason at all, and like starts shouting and stuff. I thought it was I think TJump and Aron, however you say his stupid name, they did okay, but. No, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of him. I don't like the way they run away. They try to like do this thing where they're like trying to do pure materialism when there's obviously non-material things that exist, and they try to defend like, oh, everything is just matter, man. It's just matter. It's just cells or atoms in motion. It's not necessary. I don't see why they went that route. But no, yeah, I thought it was a pretty fun debate overall.
Well, in line with what you're saying, one thing that I find extraordinarily fascinating is, the more we discover, you get down to, quantum waves and such that literally don't exist. They're just probabilities until they're actualized. It's like, why would you want to double down on the strict materialist?
Yeah, it's strange.
It's like that is collapsing per the admission of many quantum physicists. I'm not suggesting that they're arguing that they're in favor of spiritualism or some kind of ether or mysticism, but the point I'm making is like the strict materialism is crumbling in many aspects.
Yeah, I don't think you even have to get that complicated about it, because like I have no understanding of quantum physics or anything, but like to me it's just there's things like order and sorts of things like that. Like you can't have a word. Like if you think about a word, you have the letters, right? That's like the material, but you don't have a word without the order the letters come in. So there's an immaterial aspect to that. It's the same thing that makes us up. There's an immaterial aspect. So like the idea of like pure, oh, we're just atoms. That's never made sense to me. I don't see why other atheists go down that route of, oh, we're just atoms banging around out here. Like clearly not. There's other things. You don't have to like break it down to that level.
Am I still like not allowed to say?
No, I said time. I mean, don't even put you on timeout now. I'm
okay. Hey, we got
one more.
Talking to you guys.
Puce, we got one more. Puce, Domi, you're up, bro. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Sorry, man.
Yeah. Sorry. I was thinking of it like Seuss Donem. Yeah, just like a fun thing.
Gotcha. Okay, you don't play on words like A for pseudonym. Gotcha.
Yeah. I just had a question before I get into like my reaction. So in the debate, it kept saying like this is a theist thing. So is everyone here a theist and coming at it from that angle, or is it just with the understanding that?
No. Everybody is not. Like Henry is an atheist. I know for sure. I think P Mars is. P Mars, you're like agnostic, right?
Well, I believe in Jesus Christ. I have weird beliefs, though. I guess. So I guess I'm an atheist.
People we'll have atheists, and it's not a strict theist. The guy that was whining about that, his name's Mark Reed. He's a complete and utter dipshit, and he is whining. I let him come on the stream for 2 hours, and he kept like over talking people, whining. I kept putting him on timers, like, hey, we can have timed responses, and like, hey, you have 90 seconds. I'd mute everybody else. Anyway, long story short, he just didn't like the fact that I wouldn't just give him the entire floor, and now he's whining. So, no, people are welcome. Atheists, you want to come in? You're welcome. This is all about open discussion, sharing your thoughts, and late night we'll get into the madness. But right now we're all sharing our thoughts on what went down. So, what were your thoughts, Pseudonym? And what are you atheist, agnostic, theist? What's your position?
I guess I'm more of an agnostic atheist. Like, I don't personally think that there's a God, but I can't prove it either way. And so I'm just waiting for like a more valid argument than I don't know to come at me in general. But I used to be Christian or Catholic or whichever you want to call it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what did you think about the debate?
I thought it was all right. I definitely think that Aron or Aron, I also don't know. Aron did like get very hot there, like 40 or 50 minutes in, and that was to his detriment. Like, I lost a lot of credibility, it seemed, with like a lot of the audience, like just going off on yelling and stuff. But to some extent, like, I can see how that's reasonable, because when your position is so like abstracted and taken out of your control, I can understand how that might make you upset, like to that degree, even though it's detrimental to the argument, like in trying to have a point and have a discussion about it.
By the way, I was keeping a timer. It was 37 minutes when he got triggered.
Okay.
It was 37 minutes. But yeah, no, I kept track of it because every debate I've ever seen him in, there's been a definitive moment where he's like gone off the rails and started yelling at people. And I was like, man, I got to keep a timer on it this time. And it was 37 minutes. But when it hit, I was cracking up. Chris, what are your thoughts, man? Welcome to the after show. What are your thoughts about the crazy debate we just watched?
Oh, hey, thanks for having me, buddy. No, Cliffe was on point. He was very good. I think he's what got Aron triggered there at the end, which of course is not anything out of the ordinary with Aron, whatever everyone pronounces his name these days. But I thought it was funny when he said literally every evolution is backed up by literally every study ever. Did you hear him make that claim?
Yep. Standard, it's a standard Aron.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I thought it was funny when he said, "I'm not necessarily a materialist," which he's proven that BS too. And then his little consensus argument that he tried to backpedal out of. So it's typical Aron, man. Say whatever. And TJump was junk as usual. That guy is a terrible debater.
TJump actually contradicted himself a couple times. The one that I found the most interesting was when, like TJump's one of his favorite lines is consensus, and then he literally stated that you couldn't rely on consensus. And I was like, when he said that, it struck me. Like, he didn't actually use the word consensus, but he was like, you can't rely on the experts, something to that effect. And I'm like, wait a minute. In both of my debates with him and pretty much every other debate I've ever watched, he has relied on consensus.
Oh yeah.
And when he's called out on relying on consensus, it's like, well, if you're the one questioning consensus, then you're the nut. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You literally just did a 180 in tonight's debate. I thought that was rather interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what. Yeah, he's all over the map, man. He'll just say it like you know how he is. He'll just say whatever he needs to say. It sounds rational, and he'll go with it. But
agreed.
Go ahead. I had something else, but I'll think.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, to be honest with you. I'll think of it in a second.
Okay, gotcha. So let's see. P. Mars, you're back up, man. Anything else you want to add to the discussion?
I kind of got the feeling that Aron Ra wants scientific evidence for a soul or something, and I don't understand. Like, as I understand, science is a study of the natural world. So it's just, I think it's weird that he expects to be provided scientific evidence for something supernatural. I just don't get that. But am I wrong on that?
That brought me to my point. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Chris. I
was just going to say their little when they cited that they had a study. I think it was Carol that proved that they could actually transfer thought or memories or images from the brain of a mice. Was it mice? Is that what they said?
Monkeys, I think it was.
Monkeys. They didn't. I know they didn't provide any citation for that, but TJump said he was working on it. I've never heard that. Have you?
I hadn't. I was trying to Google it. I didn't find anything. I think he said he referenced a podcast with Sean Carroll as.
Yeah,
like,
I wrote that down. Carroll. Yeah, I'm gonna look for that. But I've seen a lot of videos on transhumanism, and where they play around with the neurons in like a rat or mice in their brain cells, and they'll play around with those. But they've not done what he claimed at all. So I'd be interested in seeing some citation on that.
Yeah, the whole premise of being able to like actually visualize the memory, I would be fascinated to see if that's actually been done, because everything that I've read recently in terms of cognitive function and neurons, synapses, etc., in the variety, the plethora of brain cells. Like, we don't even know how many brain cell types there are, and we're visualizing information. I don't know. We actually don't know how the data is stored in our brain. So if we don't know how it's stored, I'm not really sure how you could read it.
Right, and if they could, I mean, that would be something major, because like that's what they're pushing. I mean, and that's what they want, is be able to download your brain into like either software or even clone into another brain in a human body. You know what I mean? So I think I would have heard about that, but I'll have to look. I don't want to speak out of turn.
We've got somebody else coming to join the stream. George, how are you, sir? Are you on the run from the police for out walking your dog again?
Wild dingoes.
No, I didn't actually catch the entire debate. I caught the last bit of the question time, but I kind of laughed a little bit when you asked for the best line, because I literally fell off the chair when Aron Ra said, "I am always honest." I literally fell off the chair when I heard that.
Honest Aron, that's his name. Yep, that's what I know him as.
It is interesting. Well, I tell you, the thing that Aron tries to claim to be the most honest about is his lack of faith. And it's like, okay, so you're a extraordinarily passionate anti-theist. Therefore, you are very passionate, shall we say, insert faith-based, about your conclusion there is no God, and that theism is 100% false. I mean, that, I don't know, you can't falsify it. Like, even if you can have, strong evidence from your perspective that God does not exist, you can't ever 100% falsify that position. And at least I don't think so. I mean, you could always, I'm saying that from the atheist perspective of like, well, we can't always know. There always could be something else. Like, there always could be some way that God exists, just like they argue there always could be some natural force, some natural law that we're yet unaware of. Therefore, you're claiming God of the gaps. Well, you could be saying the exact reciprocal about the atheist, and yet he claims 100% that his position is true. So I would say that requires just a smidgen of faith. But Ocho, you're up next, man. What anything you want to add to this, or should we go on to the next person?
I was just wondering if maybe you can comment, or if anybody else had any ideas on how he always says that truth is what the facts are.
Oh, buddy.
If you have facts about things that are not material, then why can't the soul be not material? I mean, the definition of the soul itself is the spiritual or immaterial part of human being or animal regarded as immortal. That's just, a quick dictionary. Like, it's in the dictionary. Why is it so hard to believe something is just immaterial? That's where I'm coming at it from my perspective. Because I look at it as that these bodies that we have are controlled by something, a mainframe, a beginning point. Your choice technically isn't something is tangible. Now your action is, but the choice for you to be a doctor, the choice for you to be an astronaut, all starts in the beginning of time. before it becomes really what it works out to be. If you follow what I'm saying, I'm just throwing that out there. It just doesn't make sense. He talks a lot of contradictory statements, and TJump was the one who brought up the pizza parlor or whatever, which was a pretty good idea, but it worked out not for his benefit. And then when he didn't work out for his benefit, that's when I thought, when Mr. Raw, Mr. Nelson, whatever his name is, was triggered. So I wasn't dissatisfied with the debate, but they all knew what they were in for when they were debating each other. You know what I mean? It's what it seemed like. They were pretty prepared.
No, I would definitely agree. Henry, what are your thoughts about what we've been talking about, the debate? Anything that's been discussing this past 10 minutes strike your interest?
Yeah. I mean, there was the. we were talking about Aaron Raw. Like I said before, don't really like the guy because he, he's this pure materialistic. He's kind of like what we would call a like 1.0 atheist. He's doing this weird shit where he's like, oh, it's just matter knocking about. And he did the whole atheism plus stuff, so I really don't like that. But no, the pizza parlor thing with regard to like free will, I thought that was one of their better arguments actually, because they were going on about like you don't actually choose this. It's all coming from things that are outside of your control. Like you didn't create yourself. You didn't put yourself in this position. You didn't create your desire for pizza. Maybe I'm framing it more charitably than how they presented it. I don't know. But the whole soul thing, it's kind of a weird argument to me. I don't know how I would fall on that. I'm fine with like the poetic use of like the, we have a soul, but do we have an actual soul or not? I am not even sure what you mean by a soul, I suppose would be my thing.
Are we allowed to interject or go on to the next person?
Since you had kind of posed the question, yeah, go ahead, Ocho.
Well, you make a decision every day to either take care of your kids or not. That decision isn't tangible until you go commit an action. Your personal, I would say, experience, the thing that actually remembers the experience, the consciousness that resides in you. You're aware of what is it that is aware? It's your soul. It's what I believe controls your actual body to begin with. What tells what signals to go where when you want to go use it. You know what I mean? Your brain has a definite control system, but what is telling the brain, the mind, to physically store this and to use that? What is the free will located in? I believe it's the soul. That's where your free will and your soul match. And what does that mean? That means that your mind is controlled by the soul. Well, why do I say that? Well, your mind is your storage bank for where you control and have your data. Well, you know what I mean. Memories. You follow what I'm saying? And that happens to be where the brain is. The brain is where all the nerves go together. You know what that organ does. It's so important, it's not even called an organ. It's your brain. That's where the mind is. I mean, I'm no doctor to say where everything is stored, but that's where I come across as having a soul. You make a decision to have kids, you make a decision to take care of them or not.
Wait, so can I just try to summarize what your like your depiction of like the relationship between mind, body, and soul is that brain is going to be the physical substrate, and then there's mental phenomena, so that this would be like mental qualia, and that maybe goes somehow on top of the physical substrate of the brain. And then specifically the actions that we do that are contemplative, that are the cognitions that we have that kind of have us make decisions in the world to like do things, not others, especially like ones like that we would like in lay terms would call like agentic or like agency based decisions. The soul is the thing that is doing that in the mind, and it's a space within the mind, or an aspect of mind that only. Okay, and if that's the case, if that is the right summary, so correct me, please, if I'm wrong. That's really interesting because I think that humans and maybe the higher apes are the only creatures that then, by that definition of the soul, like would have souls, right? It wouldn't be just humans, though. I'd imagine that there are like some other higher animals that could engage in exactly the kind of mental uh, operations that you're describing as like the thing that the soul does. So, did that make any sense to anyone?
That's pretty good. It sounded pretty good to me. I mean, you
Makes
had a
some
bigger
sense.
word than I did, but yeah, it sounded pretty good, bro. I
I've been
mean, like
doing.
I can relate when I have my puppy that died in my hands. He was the same weight when he died.
I've been
Yeah.
actually
So,
doing
do you
some
think that he had a
research.
soul?
I've been doing some research into the early church, and Paul thought that the soul belongs to the physical realm as part of the flesh, and in death there's no separation of body and soul. So that's what the Jews thought too, and the idea of an immortal soul comes from the Greek philosophy.
Well, I would say the to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord would contradict that position rather directly.
Yeah, because I think the body is just it's kind of like Wi-Fi. We're just plugged into it, and our soul is actually somewhere else. It's already in heaven, I would think. Because if you look at it, our body goes from our brains go from electrical to chemical back to electrical, and it records the data. But if you see in computers, you can still send that data out.
Well, and
So our brain.
Here's the other thing about this, and the point you're making in terms of the app. Where is the data, and where is what is the mechanism transmitting it, and where is it actually being housed, right?
Yep.
One of the things that I think is very difficult, especially even more difficult than just a normal person, it's very difficult for the strict materialist to contemplate the premise that if time is ultimately an illusion, and there is only a now, then what we're currently viewing as this linear, restriction of like, oh, well, like, it can be both, right? It
can be like all time and God's perspective is happening all at once. That's how God can be omnipresent, because he is everywhere at once. So
right.
God knows the beginning and the end already. So time is all happening at one time in God's perspective.
Right. And what I find
But
interesting
us,
about
we're walking through that time.
And one of the things I find very interesting about that is if you actually take, anybody who takes the time to go and like read the, in-depth studies that have been going on about like near-death experiences and such, you will find that a very, very common trend for pretty much everybody that talks about it and claims to have had one is that time was no longer relevant. They still had a perception of not of time passing, but of space. And that they could experience things and comprehend multiple things going on at the same time. Like it was all happening at once, but they were no longer bound by the linear or the linear rules that we are currently operating in terms of cognition. And it's like, okay, cool. So you can literally be carrying on multiple conversations at the same time, kind of thing. Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
I find that's
pretty cool.
And that's one of the things I find interesting in relation to the, what is the premise of eternity, right? Like you hear ad nauseum from the atheist. One of the things they bash is the premise of like, oh, well, I'm just gonna be boring and stuff. I'm like, yeah. Dude. So if I was bound to only one point of view, then I could see where you're coming from in terms of the boring aspect. If I have the ability to be experiencing all sorts of things at once,
multiple points of view,
that's freaking awesome, and I'm down. And I don't really know how you find that to be non-intriguing and somehow this very esoteric premise. It's I think it's interesting. Okay, so who is next? Pseudonym. I think you're up next, buddy. If you got anything you want to say.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Man, like I want to go back a little bit and talk about when you mentioned Aron Ra's beliefs about being an anti-theist, and I think that you misrepresented it a little bit, and that it was actually that he doesn't have the evidence to prove that there is a God, and so he believes that any belief in a God without that evidence is wrong, not that believing in a God in itself is wrong. And so, like, I just think that that needs to be clarified.
Yeah, but Aron has, if you'll notice, Aron has been asked before. He always says that he's just objective and search the truth. But he was asked the question directly: if it could be shown to you or proved or demonstrated that the God of the Bible is truth, is true, would you worship him? And he said no. So I mean, he's
well. I mean, if the God, sorry for talking over you a little bit. If the God of the Bible,
I was done.
Okay. If the God of the Bible is true, that God has done horrible things, and while everything was made right with the coming of Jesus in the book, I'm not so sure that I'd be willing to worship a God if everyone who didn't worship that God was sent
the thing
to
is like, when you get, if let's say you did step in front of a holy God like that, what if he was able to say, let me show you something, okay, because your mind's limited, and he shows you the big picture, steps back and says, I did this because of this, and it just made perfectly rational sense why you did it. You know what I mean? That's totally possible, you know, to happen.
Yeah, and I would say God didn't do horrible things. Man did horrible things.
Yeah, okay, wait.
I wouldn't worship him. I wouldn't worship him either way. So
souls. Let's keep it to souls, right? Because that's a totally different. Very interesting.
I don't want to hijack. I just wanted to point that about Aron and truth, that he's kind of not really. He's got bias. In other words, we all have bias, but he's really biased on that. So go ahead.
He doesn't want the Christian God to be true. He doesn't want that God to be true. It's apparent for some reason.
Yeah,
well, that God is horrible.
Definitely seems like, I mean, he has bias, and I'd say that, you know, a preacher might likewise have bias. It's not something you can really get around when you have multiple sides of the debate.
Like I said, we all have bias, but he's taken it to another level to where he's like, you know, he wouldn't be even open to, like, if it was true, then you'd be open to be like, okay, you would expect maybe an answer for him to be like, well, okay, well, I'd have to ask him a few questions first, but you know, but he was just like, no, you know what I mean? So like, you know,
I'll tell you, as an atheist, Aron, whatever his name is, he's a jackass. He's kind of a jackass. I don't like him. A lot of the atheist community doesn't like him, but maybe you do. Pause. I'm not sure what your name is.
No, I don't feel any type of way. Just like anti-theist is more about not having the evidence rather than just saying that the belief is wrong or incorrect.
Yeah.
I agree that we all have a bias, but I think the idea of faith is about accepting things without a bias. Like when Abraham was asked to kill his son, obviously he had a bias that he didn't want to do that because, like, who would want to do that? But he did it anyway because of faith. And so to me, faith is about seeing reality as it actually is without your bias and accepting what God does, what happens.
That's interesting.
Can someone tell me why I've got this incredible craving for a pizza right now? Well, the reason why I said that, the power of suggestion, how does that work?
Well, like, is that a rhetorical, or are you actually waiting for people to respond? Sorry.
You mean in relation to a soul? Like, how can we have a soul and also have the psychological, thing that is suggestibility and a lot of other imperfections of mind?
Well, someone mentioned a pizza, and the word pizza brought an image in my mind. And I felt like, gee, I haven't had a pizza for so long. I wonder what it still tastes like. Oh, by the way, I like pizza with pineapple. Sorry.
Oh, God.
Don't be sorry for speaking the truth. Pizza with pineapple is superior.
I think a generous way, I don't believe that a soul exists or is a useful thing to talk about, actually. But I think if one were to create a concept of soul, it would be something like the soul is that which like deliberates and makes those decisions. So it might not be the first thing to come online when there's like new data that's entered through like sense organs or whatever. But then that suggestibility is going to be brought into like this consideration point, like the soul.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is, let's take an animal for example, right? A lion, it's feeling hungry. Does it picture a zebra to have for lunch, or does it picture a rabbit or something else? You know, like
it just goes after what it sees.
Yeah, there's no necessary like deliberation point. It's because, and you could say like it's partially because they don't really have a built-out cortex in the first place. They don't have that space for soul.
Exactly. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us
and
different.
they can't make musical instruments and nice symphonies and great music.
Create
I don't see
codes.
a monkey. Yeah, codes and yeah.
I mean, that's a good way you put it, George Bond. What is it you actually trigger when you entice someone? What is it that you're actually, making someone? What is the influence triggering in someone? What is it? Because it's not material, is what you sounds like. What you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's something that's not material is undermining to the whole debate. You see, the whole debate, they came at it as it's immaterial, so that means it doesn't exist because it's immaterial. But if you're proving that you've had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things that you can see that's immaterial as evidence that things are immaterial, that they exist as immaterial things, why is the soul not plausible?
Well, I'm sorry. What, what is immaterial? Are you saying is immaterial and exists that we know of?
Like a thought
is a program inside a computer material?
Technically, yeah. It's like the motherboard houses that information.
No, it's not that. No.
Information is
data.
Material.
It's the order, is what they're talking about.
There's
an order to things that is non-material.
The ink to the page is not the same as the alphabet that you see written in front of you.
No, the alphabet is a construct that society's created.
Here, Bob, let me try.
Language is something that was
given to guys, the number one example that everyone has at their immediate disposal is consciousness. There's a material substrate to consciousness, like our brain, but there's also something that it's like to be us. This is like Thomas Nagel. What is it like to be a bat? Well, we can immediately see what it's like to be a human, and that fact of consciousness, for me, makes it so that it's very. It seems like self-evident that there's mental things or non-physical things, and also physical things. Maybe the connection between brain and mind is still an open question. But there are non-physical things. Well, obviously you can make a religious, figure out some religious kind of link to them, but it's an open scientific question. And I would just want to go further, because if so far whoever's on board with that construction so far, I think you can get all the way there. You can say that there are mental things, psychological things, and you could say that there are material things, like these two different classes of things that exist in reality, and still say that the soul does not have to be it doesn't really have that much explanatory power here. You can have mental things that exist without a soul.
What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul?
What?
The soul is something that's to be lost. You're saying, Jay-Z, you're saying that soul, that you can have all these things without having a soul. And I'm saying that a soul is something that is actually there to be lost.
So what I'm saying is that
what do you think the soul is?
It is something of you.
In order to explain. Yeah, so what I'm saying is I don't think that we need the concept of the soul in order to explain everything. like for example, the deliberations that we make, kind of your construction of the soul as like the space in which we make decisions, really, make considered judgments and use our conscience. I think we can explain that without invoking this idea that we have a soul that kind of interacts with a creator being or something. We can say that these are all parts of the mind, just like instincts or quote unquote like lower order quality like things in the mind are also just things in the mind. There's no need to carve out a separate class for soul.
Yeah, I do agree with that. My question was trying to lead us to the point that's like concepts do exist and are immaterial, but that is a far jump from like going from concepts which are immaterial, but like I have a concept of myself, or a concept of the alphabet, or of numbers, or like an understanding of myself of things, but going from that and equating that to a concept of a soul being equally as valid a concept, like being equally immaterial and unknowable and thus equally valid as having social or self concept, is like isn't equal, and you can't do that with like while maintaining like a good reasoning.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm curious, Ocho, what like how would you define a soul? Like, what is a soul? Is it Ocho or?
I believe that the soul is exactly what you use on your daily basis to get up, to make your cognitive decisions. That is what is behind the mind. You follow what I'm saying?
Not really, because I mean, you have like atheist people, even like a materialist like Aaron Roth.
All right, can we agree that you can we agree that you at least make a decision with something?
Yeah.
Like I think Ocho,
do you say it's where your mind is, or do you say it's you make a decision with your body? Because
you're saying the soul of the mind. Is that how you define it? It's the mind.
It's the part of the mind. If I remember you from like 10 minutes ago, it's the part of the mind where you make considered, rational, conscious-based decisions. So,
correct.
And what I think to that, and I think that a lot of people maybe here think to that, is like, well, why call that a soul if that's just a specific
my
mental
question
operation?
About the soul
because it's not a simple mental operation. That's my argument with that. Jay-Z, you're saying
sorry, I cut into Henry. Sorry, Henry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say with the soul, there's kind of an implication. I think that it's eternal, right? That it goes on after we die. Is that part of your definition, or?
Yeah, that's the responsibility part of you that goes on.
So why would you think that? Like, because like
it's the spiritual part of you that makes you.
You know in your heart that someone does something to you that they can't replace. That's wrong.
I think that's maybe the difference here. Is like with us, it's there can be immaterial things. Like the mind, I would say, is immaterial, but it needs a material substrate to function. It would be like having a computer program with no material. Like it wouldn't work. And so, like,
program is not a mind.
Well, no, it's an analogy. It's not a perfect analogy.
Yeah, I see what you're saying though, but the soul is your spirit, so it's going to be able to continue on in our worldview. It's going to continue on.
Why do you think so?
Why do I think so? Because why do I think so personally? Because the Bible tells me so. So, I mean, I've read it in Scripture.
I understand that. I guess. I mean, as an atheist,
I mean, it's several passages in the Bible, but a point like being like, if we were all, let's say, all clones, okay, like me and my brother, for example, or twins would be a better example, but me and my brother are really close in age. You know what I mean? If all of our circumstances were the same and everything like we did had the same experiences, but we should have had, let's say twins let's just use twins. They're different completely, separated, like as far as like mind and
Sure.
body and soul. So you can take them, and they have different their different experiences will give you different outcomes, because inside, intrinsic to their nature, they are more than just
It's like your personality.
I think I understand what
would
you're
be
saying.
a part of it.
You're saying if they
Yeah.
were genetically identical, two genetically identical people who were have the exact same environment, the exact same upbringing, exact same
Right.
everything, they should be able to respond differently. Like they should have different lives. I guess it would be what you're saying. Like they should be able to react and have different outcomes for themselves, in spite of like having the exact same genetics, exact same
Right.
environment,
Same
exact same
parents.
circumstances. They make different choices, so they can have totally different. They can lead different lives.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Because they do have a soul, because they have something that's intrinsic to just them. You know what I mean? It's personal.
Yeah. I think that's the thing I would disagree with. I'm not sure where that would come from.
Okay, so does
I just got one quick question. What do you think what happens when you die, Henry?
I have no idea.
You just go to
That's fair.
nothingness, back to where you came from. Nothingness.
It could be. Yeah.
I'm holding out for 72 virgins personally, but
Yeah, me too. I'm the same boat, man. Yeah, that'd be nice. I hope I don't have to, perform a terrorist act to make that happen. But
yeah. I don't
okay,
know.
all right. So, do you guys agree or disagree that on the atomic level, quantum level, there are things such as quarks that do exist but have no material, have no mass, or photons, for example?
Yeah, I'm not so well versed in like quantum this and that, or sometimes I get kind of skeptical when we bring it in because.
Well, no, I have a point with this. So, I mean, the current position is that photons do not have mass. They're immaterial, yet they can impact the material world, right? So, and literally the fundamental components that enable life to exist per our current worldview, like going all the way down to that level, the subatomic level, or things that some of them have mass, some of them don't, some of them do exist, some of them don't exist in terms of the material world, right? Yet they're required.
Some of them. Wait, what do you mean? In which case, what do you mean they don't exist in the material world?
Well, a photon, for example.
Well, a photon does exist.
A photon exists.
Energy.
A photon exists, but it does not have mass.
You don't need mass to exist. You need to have energy and have that energy be interactive in some way.
Okay, hang on. When it's a wave, before it collapses into a photon, when it's in the wave state, it has nothing.
It has energy.
No, it does not.
Well, what is the wave?
The energy does not exist. The energy form, there is the potential for energy, yes, but it doesn't actually exist.
So what is this wave?
It doesn't actually exist until the wave collapses into a photon. Then the energy is actualized. But before that, it does not. It has the potential, but it doesn't actually exist yet.
So does that mean it has? This is physics 101 for me. I'm sorry, but doesn't that mean it has potential energy? And in general, it kind of sounds like I don't know. Again, this is why I'm skeptical. It's because now we're getting into like metaphysics when we're just talking about basic physics.
Well, that's the point. Is that and by the way, there's plenty of quantum physicists that have literally stated things such as like the further we go down the rabbit hole, the more we're running into mysticism.
He said, "Let there be photons."
Interesting. I agree with that. But the point I'm making is directly in relation to the point of like, well, if we don't have, if there's no material, then how could the information from a computer exist, right? That point was made a few minutes ago. Well, the point I'm making is that we already know beyond all doubt that there are things that exist that do not have mass in the format that we perceive it to be in terms of matter, right? And what would be required for information. Well, quantum information in and of itself does not have mass. It can take form and have mass, but it doesn't have it necessarily.
When you say quantum information, you mean protons and quarks and things like that.
Well, I mean, there's other aspects to it as well, but yes, on the fundamental levels, that's some of the components of quantum information. But the point I'm making is that the materialists love to argue everything can be reduced down to the material, but the reality is what we're discovering is when you ultimately reduce all of the things down, there is no freaking material, and which is why I find their position so ironic.
You mean like there is no mass, right?
Correct. And so and beyond that, they're realizing that the mass doesn't exist until the collapse happens of the wave function, collapses into mass, but it's not anything prior to that. So that's when you get into
Then what are we talking? Then what exactly are we talking about prior to its collapse?
Well, and that's where the consciousness problem becomes such a crazy conundrum for everybody really, but
no, but I think that's fair. Is that like, yeah, you're right. What is the role of and how does the mind interact with the brain interact with mind, material, consciousness, all that? But even before that, no, I'm actually asking, what are you talking about when you're talking about a non-collapsed waveform? Is it not?
Also, could I ask a question? To logical, plausible, probable.
Go ahead.
It's a slightly compatible one, but it's just have you studied like quantum physics and stuff, or are you just have you read papers on it? Or
I mean, I've read multiple books and probably 100 papers on this topic.
Okay. The guy has a huge Google Drive, actually.
This is ridiculous. I mean, there's literally books. If you get a good starting point, go read a book called The Quantum Enigma. And the entire premise of the book is written by two high-level quantum physicists. They literally say, the starting of the book, I forget which version it is, but they literally say, we waited until we were old to write this book because nobody wants to actually address these ultimate questions, which is what some of the things I'm talking about. But then ultimately, they get into the whole problem of the consciousness problem, which is and I'm not. You can go find. There's been multiple books written on what I'm about to say, which is what they're now. Okay, so how many? I'm assuming everybody in the room understands and has read about the whole Schrodinger's cat problem. That thought experiment.
You're talking about the hard problem of consciousness is why do we have it at all?
Well, not only why do we have it, but does matter exist without it? Is the ultimate conundrum.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but
that's
logical, plausible, probables dialogue doesn't relate to the hard problem, but I still think it's super interesting. So what is the upshot of this?
Hang on. You don't think it relates to the hard problem? It is the hard problem, which is if consciousness, what is being questioned as we speak in real world quantum mechanics research is, does anything exist until it's observed? It's the observer problem. It's the measurement problem. There's multiple terms for it. But it's literally matter does not exist until it's observed the first time, or even ongoing. So we're actually being able to recreate the logic in the lab.
I don't think that's quite true. You're saying it doesn't exist until it's observed. I don't think that's accurate. I think with the you have the double slit experiment and that sort of thing. That's saying that you interact with a thing and it behaves as a particle rather than a wave by observing it. That's not the same as it not existing beforehand.
Okay, well, the wave is the potential, and what they are now when you get into delayed choice and retrocausality, you do have a serious problem that completely eviscerates your point. And more importantly, what they're now starting to realize is that hang on.
No, I don't want to be unruly, but this is the same thing that we've been talking about before, where it's so this.
Okay, I'm going to finish a freaking sentence. Now, the point that I've been trying to get to, and you guys keep interrupting, is that what is now being discussed is the premise, and so I was bringing up the Schrodinger's cat. The original thought experiment was it's both things. It's dead and alive until it's observed. What they are now coming to the realization of is that it is neither until observed. If you have two, it could be in either one of these boxes. Oh wait, whichever one we open is where it was. Well, no, what they're discovering is it was in neither box until the choice was made. And that is what is causing significant brain teasers and conundrums and paradoxes that they're trying to come to grips with in the lab, is because what I'm describing is testable and repeatable. They're literally seeing this, which is what I find so entertaining about TJump's diatribes about testable, repeatable predictions, is the aspect of the consciousness requirement is being testable and repeatable in the lab, and yet it's being adamantly attempted to be avoided, even though the evidence for it continues to grow. All right, now go ahead, Jay-Z.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to take on faith that is the case, because you've read a lot more about this than I have. So what is the upshot? Like, explain this as in relation to, I guess, the notion of a soul or the notion of mind and the heart problem.
Wait, before we get to the upshot, could I bring it back to one of Jay-Z's actual points, which, what are you talking about when you mean the wave? Like, are you talking about light before it's emitted, or are you talking about light before it's observed?
Look, we're just not going to get anywhere on that. Like, it might be no thing. It strikes me as not tenable, but it's literally
Well,
no
on
thing.
that point,
But-
John, what was you talking about, John, when you said that the choice to observe? Is that what you were talking about? Because you
Okay,
said we're found in it.
So everything is a wave until it's measured, and the question, and then it goes from being the wave function, which is the potential, the probabilities of what it could be, and the position.
Yeah, I know about the. I know
and
about
then,
the.
and then once the measurement happens, then it collapses into the one that it is.
Yeah, what he's describing, I think I could put it a little better than that. He's talking about photons, light waves, and they behave like waves until
I know all about that.
They behave like particles.
You're limiting it. This logic applies to literally everything. It's not just limited to light or.
Well, no,
it literally applies to
been
everything.
demonstrated with light.
No, it's been demonstrated with electrons and light, and they've taken it all the way up to physics.
How? With what experiment?
They have. Okay.
The double slit experiment showed it with electrons.
That's light.
Everything.
No,
it showed it with the electrons.
That's photons. It's light.
No, photons is the photoelectric effect by Albert Einstein that came before the double slit experiment, which they utilized electrons, because I believe it was Louis de Broglie who actually originally proposed the idea
shooting
of
electrons through double slits. No, they weren't.
And
what are you talking about?
They have taken this logic all the way up to the macro level.
Who is this guy? No, they haven't.
Yes,
You're talking about the double slit experiment. They've taken it up to the macro level. No, they're talking about photons. You're talking about light waves.
I'm talking about the measurement problem. They've taken it all the way up to the macro level. I'm talking about the measurement problem. The double slit experiment is just one application of the measurement problem.
Can we at least agree that they were using photons in that experiment? I thought this guy said they were using electrons.
They've used both electrons and photons.
They used electrons in the double slit experiment.
And photons. They've used both.
They used electrons, is what you're saying. Really?
That's what Leo was saying. I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. That's fucking stupid. That's retarded.
Hey, guys. This is why, this is why I ask, what's the upshot here? Like, instead of getting into the finer details of the double slit experiment and stuff, I just want to see how.
It's been done with both. It's been done with both. Is the point? But it's not
been done with electrons, really?
Yes.
No shit.
Wait. Can we get a just to make sure? I mean, because it would. I mean, I think it would.
Google this. I'll Google it. Maybe I'm.
Henry, can you do that?
I'll Google it.
It's literally been done with photons and electrons, but that's not the point. The point that's being made. That's just one experiment in the context of the measurement problem, which is the macro view we're talking about in relation to quantum mechanics, and which the macro view in relation to the macro view we're talking about in relation to the soul, and what is consciousness, and what is the application of consciousness into the overall existence of matter. And if the consciousness is required prior to the existence of the matter, then it puts consciousness on a entirely different paradigm, and it makes the materialist worldview stupid because they're not even being able to see the forest for the trees. Is the entire point that's being made here.
Oh, so you at the way to get to soul and relevance is like that ultimately, when you really look at it, everything is non-material. Therefore, and when you really dig down into quantum, this and that. So therefore,
Yeah, I mean,
material.
In order for the material to be actualized, the consciousness must exist prior to the actualization. And then when
so
you get
why
into
are we calling this consciousness versus something that's non-material? Is consciousness just consciousness is one, I guess we could, or mental things, right? Are one instance of.
that's just an argument against it. The soul. That's an argument against the soul. Is that that's the materialists make. But atoms are basically 99.9% empty space. So I mean, I agree.
Oh
with
yeah, no, I was wrong. They did use electrons as well.
Yeah, I was pretty sure they did too. Yeah.
the original experiment.
My bad.
The original experiment was photons.
You owned it.
And then they did electrons, and they've done it with a variety of different.
Yeah, I was wrong on that.
But yeah, anyway, we don't need to go off on the point. The point that I was making in all this is that whether or not they end up finding some way around this is that may happen at some point. But the point I was making is that in the context of the debate from tonight, on one side you had strict materialists in TJump and Aron Ra. Like that's a freaking obvious.
Aron Ra denied he was a materialist tonight. He said
No, he isn't.
He's not.
He did. I thought I could have sworn he was adamantly claiming he was.
Came off like a materialist.
Well, that's what he does, man. He switches when it's favorable for him. But he did say in the debate that he's not a materialist. You can pull it up. I can pull it up for you at some point.
Did he say that, Chris, or did he say he's not a relativist?
Excuse me. Apologize. He says he's not a moral relativist. You're correct, but I apologize on that. I apologize. I'm wrong.
Full materialist. That whole side is materialism.
I apologize. I was wrong. But that struck me. That struck me funny that he said that because he's always saying that. He jumps.
You're good. You owned it.
Okay, so Leophilus, do you have anything you want to add, man? I know we had to cut you off while the madness was going down. You have anything you want to add?
No, I just the debate. I didn't think there was really a winner or loser. I don't think it was like a shit show. It was passionate, but I think that on both sides, I mean, it didn't really resort to mudslinging, but it was passionate. I had originally heard some things on quantum mechanics and people saying that they didn't understand things, and some of the things I heard from my understanding of quantum mechanics, as somebody who's read actual textbooks and worked through basic problems, some of it wasn't quite accurate. Okay, but I don't know if you want to go down that, if you're wanting to focus.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of different aspects you can go. There's a boatload of rabbit holes you can go down in the context of quantum mechanics. Most half people don't understand what the hell's going on. They're experts in it. They're learning all sorts of.
They'll tell you that too.
I think one of the major facets of all that, and this is why I say in the context of I saw you in chat talking about quantum mechanics somehow being a reinforcement for naturalism.
Bolsters naturalism, yeah.
And I would say that's a rather gigantic leap.
Well, you got to remember, bolster simply means it supports it. It doesn't mean it has to support only that, just that this is one thing that does fit within a naturalistic framework. So it bolsters it, but it doesn't mean everything has to
except at the root, it doesn't.
It does, because it explains a lot of things at their most fundamental level.
It
entirely natural mechanisms like quantum electrodynamics.
Quantum, it explains different functions. It doesn't explain the root of their existence.
For electromagnetism, yeah, quantum electrodynamics does that.
You can get into virtual particles and other kind of stuff. That's not the point. You're talking about, you're not going all the way to the ultimate root, which is how
I'm going to quantum field theory, which is the root.
Okay, and part of quantum field theory is how does it actually collapse?
How does a wave function collapse?
Which is the measurement problem, which is the entire point that I was making about the ultimate root, which is the whole point I was saying it is not solved. And the more experiments they're doing, the more they're pushing towards the premise of the consciousness requirement. You know this. If you've been reading the books and reading the textbooks, you know.
But consciousness doesn't play a part in wave function
dude,
collapse.
yes. Okay, there are numerous papers of the last 2 years of people talking about this exact point of like, hey, when the hell are we going to stop trying to dodge the consciousness problem? Because everybody's trying, it's just the machine that we're using to measure it. But then, hey, that doesn't get actualized until we actually read the information. So ultimately, there is the consciousness component of this. I mean, there's just papers at the yin-yang written on this.
So when a photon interacts with an electron and they collapse each other's wave functions, which is what interaction is, where's the consciousness there?
Do we know that happened until it's actual?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, we do.
No. What is the delayed choice? What is the delayed choice experiment?
The delayed choice is the process.
Hold on.
Okay.
I actually don't know what it is. Can someone just explain it?
Yes, I can. So the delayed choice. So first off, there was a quantum eraser experiment done, and then there was a delayed choice experiment done.
And they did a delayed choice with the quantum eraser. And what happened?
Yes. And what the experiment shows is that if we measure something as a particle, but then we measure it as a wave at a different point, did we change its history? And they've solved that. No, we don't change its history because that's not what wave function collapse means. The term, does anybody know what
delayed choice?
Collapse
delayed choice with the quantum eraser. That is not when they added that into the equation. No, it did not solve the problem.
Yes, they did.
No, it did, dude.
Well, I'm hearing it from actual theoretical physicists.
Okay, and I've read it directly from the paper where they talk about, we solved Bell's theorem.
So Sean Carroll is wrong.
Dude, Sean Carroll is a
Leonard
freaking dumbass. That dude
sounds like
no.
I'm
done with you. Okay. The Theophilus, you claimed you literally kiss Sean Carroll's ass in everything that you talk about. There are so many quantum physicists that think he is an idiot. Or like
neither of you guys, you just to be like clear, man, and I'm trying to be as open-minded as possible, but you and Leophilus have both collectively failed to give the layperson a recapitulation of either of your views, and now you're both relying on a fortiori, just like from a higher power argument, and it's kind of disappointing. I'd almost want to ask you guys to do it again, but I do truly believe now, like based on your interaction, that it's actually more an open question in the field of quantum physics or physicists. So maybe we move on. I think that actually you can have.
I'm happy to move on, Jay-Z, but apparently you didn't listen to a word that came out of my mouth, which was
I've been listening for
multiple times. No, obviously you didn't, because multiple times since I've been discussing this premise, I've stated that there are huge questions being raised, that there is disagreement on this, like that people are. There's different physicists saying, "Hey guys, when are we going to start to agree on this?" While other folks are saying that it's nothing to even consider, and that hey, it's the measurement problem. Oh, it's the device. No, it's the consciousness. I was literally making the point that it is a huge point of contention, and that you either have to. There's multiple ways to look at it, but ultimately, it's coming. It's starting to come to the point of, hey, we can no longer avoid the consciousness component to the measurement problem, which is the entire point that I was making.
Is that a growing consensus in the field? That last point that you're making.
There is a growing component that this is an unavoidable question. Yes.
It's okay. And what I was just I think that I might have I think I oversimplified I think you did a pretty good job of showing that it's more like open question based. But I would still say that it seems like it's not everyone is sold on the notion of consciousness yet. I think it's generally dangerous to talk about science and then to talk about, the consensus is, Well,
since I never used the word consensus, I didn't do that. But more importantly,
my point is that
more importantly, if you actually go and watch like detailed interviews with a lot of these top guys, and they're asked this question, very often it's a very unavoidable one, but we know there was no life at the beginning, so there must be some other way around it. Otherwise, it would be the case. And it's like I watched a thing at a big conference. There was a whole panel of some of the top quantum physicists around the world. They were all asked the same question, and pretty much all of them came to that same conclusion. It's like, we know life didn't exist, therefore there must be some other alternative. Otherwise, the evidence looks like yes, it would require consciousness. And it's like, okay, so you're saying that in any other context, you would conclude based on the evidence that would be the case, that the consciousness requirement would be true. But because your worldview claims there is none, therefore the evidence is false.
I don't see how they could falsify it anyways. You know what I mean? Because you're an observer.
My question, I guess, John, is so you're saying that like I suppose you're saying that like consciousness is required to like for these experiments or whatever. Like, how is this getting back to what you were saying about there's a soul or?
Okay, so in the context of very existence, right? So if you operate from the perspective that consciousness is required for the ultimate formation of matter, right? Then for the universe to exist, there must have been consciousness in order for that to be actualized.
Right. Why would you not have thought that matter was required? Oh, sorry.
Then when you extrapolate out to what we are now being able to do in the lab, which showcases at least from a theoretical perspective, that consciousness is able to actualize matter. One of the experiments they've done, they've been able to like do this and cause the collapse all this stuff about the size of a teaspoon. In the macro level versus what they thought was only purely governed by classical mechanics versus quantum mechanics. There's more and more evidence being derived that the consciousness component can actually matter.
I think I see what you're saying. So like in my view,
then I'm going to finish my sentence. When I'm done. So then you have to get into the point of, okay, if prior to the existence of the universe there was a consciousness required, and if we're seeing that, at least theoretically, our consciousness is also being able to actualize matter, then if I am made of matter, there must be something that's actualizing me. And this is where the whole premise of consciousness being, it can be housed in, but be external to the end actualization of the physical form. And this is where things like, they claim to be measuring our, brain waves and, this happened before and all that stuff in terms of the decision-making process and what we're seeing from a measurement perspective. However, we now know with like retrocausality that it can be rewriting. Well, like, okay, cool. We're seeing the decision being made, but if it wasn't actually actualized until our consciousness made the decision, then of course it's going to look like it happened post decision being made, because it wouldn't have been actualized until we made it happen. But now we're measuring it from the physical world.
Okay, so like
that's where you have to follow the cascade of what is actually being actualized in terms of the real world. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so in my view, I think that you can't have consciousness without matter. And I am wondering, I guess my question is, in your view, do you think you can't have matter without consciousness, like that precedes matter?
At the ultimate root, yes. Consciousness must precede matter.
Okay.
Now, once it's actualized, does it mean that it has to be being... this is my whole point about the external consciousness. Okay, so if...
Well, wouldn't that external consciousness have needed some other consciousness to have, created that one in some higher space?
Well, if that consciousness is not, if that consciousness is not material, then no, which is the entire point. And the other aspect, one of the other aspects that just drives me up the wall about is the who designed the designer argument. It's like, that is so irrelevant to whether or not one was required for this universe to exist. And like, we don't even understand our own existence, and yet we think that because we couldn't potentially explain how that entity come into existence, that therefore that entity does not exist.
I'm sorry, are you saying that because we can't explain our universe, and we're explaining that because we can't explain this universe, we can't attack the idea that we're all created by something else?
Yeah, say it again.
Are you saying that because we don't understand our own universe, we can't begin to attack the concept of an external creation having created us?
Correct. Yeah, it's like, it's like the equivalent of being like, okay, I am inside of to do a spin on the watchmaker deal. So like,
or like the ghost in a machine.
We're the components inside of a Fitbit watch, right? Inside of a lab. And then we realized, like, holy crap, all this stuff around us, like, we appear to be designed and made, and I don't think this could exist without an intelligent agent. And then the ALU says, well, no, because that means we would be in a lab, and if we're in a lab, then that means there must have been a designer, and we don't know who the freaking parents of the designer of the builder of the lab who designed us are. Therefore, there is no lab, and therefore there is no designer of us. Like, that's the logic that's being extrapolated out. God may not be eternal. Doesn't mean that, and God may have had a creator. Doesn't mean that we didn't have one. That has zero relevance to whether or not the evidence showcases that we require one.
I'm not saying that we require one because we design. I'm just saying that you're presupposing that we're so complex that we need to have been designed, or that the universe is so complex that it needs to have been designed, as opposed to just
the complexity argument is a very it's a one that gets spun very often. The interdependence component of existence is different than just pure complexity. And then you have to get into the prescriptive aspect of the information requirement for life to exist. And it's where when you boil it all the way down to the ultimate root, in my opinion, you reach the position of, unless you're willing to argue that the software that enables us to have this conversation come into existence without an intelligent agent, then we cannot exist without a prior existing intelligent agent. Now, who that is subject to debate, and figuring out, whether you're, which God you believe in, all that kind of stuff. That's a totally different conversation. But whether or not the intelligent agent is required is in my opinion, is the first question to ask and to answer. And if you come to the conclusion that one must exist in order for you to exist, then now you can start going down the different rabbit holes. But everybody wants to just jump all the way to the extreme before they actually analyze what are the fundamental requirements for your existence. And to me, once you go down that rabbit hole, the only rational conclusion is that there must be one. And from there, you go to try to figure out, what's the correct choice. All right, Leo, let's go ahead, man. You've been being quiet for a minute.
Yeah, I still wanted to explain the thing that I was trying to explain earlier about the quantum erasers, the delayed choice quantum erasers, which is actually just a cool experiment, because there are actually a couple of citations I can give that show that they pretty much resolved it. And the first one, I don't know how to pronounce this name. I think that's Shao Song, probably. Kofler Johannes, Angie Kari. There's a number of names on here. I'm not going to go through them all. This was in Quantum Eraser with Causally Disconnected Choice in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. And they state, our results demonstrate that the viewpoint that the system photon behaves either definitely as a wave or definitely as a particle would require faster than light communication. Because this would be in strong tension with the special theory of relativity, we believe that such a viewpoint should be given up entirely, end quote. And another one in Science Journal called A Quantum Delayed Choice Experiment by an A. Peruzol, a P. Shadbolt, an N. Brunner, an S. Papesu, and a J.L. O'Brien. They state this experiment uses Bell's inequalities to replace the delayed choice devices, but it achieves the same experimental purpose in a more elegant and convincing way. And that is the consensus I have seen reflected in every professional that I have talked to. Many, and I would actually say most of them, actually being in person.
And do they claim that do they claim that explains the quantum entanglement problem? No, in relation to the they're claiming that the what you just read talks about the speed problem, right? Right.
Well, one of them
and
cited that,
the point that I'm making is the quantum entanglement is recognized circumvents that entire issue. So if you have on the other side of the equation, you have a known premise that circumvents the barrier of C, then to claim that you have now debunked this in the context while still saying you're subject to C, that's a false position.
Well, entanglement doesn't violate the speed of light.
I know.
There is no physical.
I understand that, but there's something that's happening, correct? Is there information?
In entanglement?
Is there information transfer that is occurring with distance and time not being relevant?
In entanglement, no. Entanglement is the result of an entire quantum system being described by the wave function rather than the various states of that system each being described by their own wave function.
Is information?
So you can determine the state of all aspects of that system with one wave function. Thus, the states of the system are entangled. There is no information movement. The information does not move at all in entanglement. It's more a mathematical result. It's a result of the mathematics again.
Is there information be able to transfer without time and space being relevant?
Can information transfer without time and space? I don't think you can have information without time and space.
Okay.
So you would have to have time and
well,
space.
well, you're obviously not reading some of the stuff where they're actually doing this. But anyway, we're going to...
It seems like Theophilus has read it because that's a very quick and like very reasonable answer, just right off the top of Theophilus's head of why quantum entanglement isn't actually a problem and why quantum entanglement makes complete sense if you've read up on the issue.
Yeah. It all comes down to how you're mathematically describing the system. You utilize one wave function, and that wave function can tell you, when you collapse it for one state, it also tells you about all the other states without having to directly observe them. But no information moves. It's just how the system is being mathematically described.
And I would just actually like to ask logical, plausible, probable to just double click on that point on how you can get information, I guess, movement or transfer without time and space. It's just I don't study physics. I'm interested in hearing what the experts do have to say on that, because my intuition is actually that you can't have that transfer without time and space.
Well, it's being claimed that it's being done. Let's see. Let's just Google it real quick.
I just saw a comment that said, "Who here is a quantum mechanics physicist? Why is this even being talked about?" And I'd just like to point out that I don't think anyone with respect to Theophilus is an actual expert. And Theophilus, I don't think any of us are experts.
Okay, so
that this is being taken to this extreme to try to make an absurdism out of materialism instead of actually arguing the philosophical point of free will and the soul. I guess not free will. Sorry. And trying to say that materialism is ridiculous by taking it down this quantum mechanical route that no one can actually realistically explain. So no one understands.
You do say, just to really quickly, I think, like, just motivate the idea I was talking about in the first place, is that logical, plausible, probable said that it seems, based on the physics...
Something wrong with the internet connection.
Mine? Oops.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah,
JZ is fine for me.
It seems like, based on the physics, based on what we know, it seems like you need consciousness in order to have matter in the first place. So that is, for me, if that were the actual case, that's strong evidence for there being some kind of creator. We can call it something, but it's certainly weird enough that it's not talked about. I still think there's a lot more ducks that have to be in a row before you start doing Hail Marys, but that is interesting. Now, I think, and my biggest open question on that is it doesn't seem like that is necessarily the mainstream view in physics. It seems very, very much not settled. That there needs to be consciousness in order to have, I guess, a big bang or anything like that. I'm just not seeing it. Maybe I'm not intelligent enough to get it.
I would think the other problem with that, you're saying that you have to have consciousness in order for matter to exist. How do you get around, you as a person have consciousness. So, why is that not creating all of the matter that exists?
I mean, that sounds analogous to a creationist saying, why do monkeys still exist if evolution is true? I don't know if that doesn't sound very serious.
It actually makes sense to me. See, he's saying you have to have a consciousness. Each of us here, every one of us, has a consciousness. And he's saying that you have to have some consciousness. It doesn't really matter what it is or who it is. You have to have it in order for matter to exist. So why could any one of our consciousnesses not be the consciousness that is creating matter?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
The universe existed prior to you existing.
Well,
so you
not according to him. He's saying that matter is contingent upon a conscious mind. So we could have preceded that. It could have come into existence with us, like we came into existence.
No.
Why not?
Because for the universe to exist, if the logic flow that's being followed, if that is true, then a conscious entity had to exist prior to the formation of the universe. And we didn't. We exist as part of the universe, not
came into existence with us. So, like once we came into existence, it came into existence after us.
I mean that. So are you? I mean that's like you're creating the ultimate paradox.
Yeah, how? You're the one that says consciousness precedes. Consciousness creates.
Okay, I'm literally talking about a cause and effect aspect. You're talking about a time traveling. You're talking about a time traveling.
No. You're saying consciousness creates material, right?
No, I said that consciousness is required for it to form. For it
to exist.
Now, once it's actualized, I'm not saying that it has to be consciously being actualized 100% of the time. That's not the point. I'm talking about the initial collapse.
Oh, so you can have material without a conscious.
Dude, have you not been listening to anything that's being talked about for the last hour?
No, I have. I'm asking you how you know that it's not you. You're saying that like it.
I follow it.
Had to have been consciousness for material.
Henry, I follow what you're saying. I just don't understand why you would be that myopic in terms of like the macro view of.
I'm following your line of reasoning.
No, you're not, because I've literally been talking about the higher entity would be required in order for any of this to exist in the first place. Well, so if you're not following that, then
consciousness is required. You didn't say anything about higher. You said
yes, I did. Dude. Okay, so, you're done. All right, who else wants to talk?
Well, I would say it seems to me that the universe designed human beings as an aperture through which to observe itself. So, yeah, it stands to reason that there is a consciousness behind the universe to me.
But that's presupposing an intent for the universe or a consciousness to see itself or to see the universe. And you have to back up that presupposition. You can't just say that humans are working towards like the universe wants to see itself, so it created humans, or that something created humans that they could be aware of their existence. That implies intent. I think.
When the Bible says that man is made in the image of God, I think that it might be talking about the consciousness aspect of us.
The Bible says a lot of things, and I don't recognize it as a reliable scientific text.
I don't care what you recognize as reliable.
At that point, there really isn't a discussion to be had then.
Can I?
Leo, do you
What's up?
I was just going to ask Leo, do you still believe that things can exist without a cause?
No, it depends on how you define the word cause.
Because
as I outlined in that
how do you define the word cause?
It has an entirely different. It depends on the context that we're speaking about. Because I understand that it isn't just a
cause of the universe. How about the cause of the universe?
We don't. That question probably isn't even relevant to ask. It'd be like asking what's north of the North Pole. That just doesn't even make sense.
What about the cause of radioactivity?
Define what you would mean by cause in that instance.
How's Leo, the other day, you denied that there was a cause. Was it Neff asked you? is there anything that occurs without a cause? And you said radioactivity.
I said it depends on the context that you're talking about, and then he defined what he meant by cause, and I said, well, yeah, there's a number of things that would not have a cause as he defined.
One being, you said virtual particles.
How are you using the word?
You said virtual particles, though, right?
Were one of the things that did not have a cause as he defined it, yes.
What's carbon-14?
Carbon-14 is an atom.
How is it formed?
Through nucleosynthesis processes.
Cosmic rays? Cosmic rays
can produce it from nitrogen, yes.
Lightning, nuclear weapons?
Lightning can have enough energy, yep. Nuclear weapons can have enough energy.
Is carbon-14 radioactive?
Yes, it is one of the radioactive.
There's your cause.
What's the cause?
You just said it.
No, I didn't.
Cosmic rays, lightning.
Cosmic rays cause the atom to exist. What causes the atom to decay?
It's the imbalance. The imbalance of the energy within the nucleus.
I'm just being. I don't mean that as an actual answer.
But I have heard that one before, and I always say entropy is a description of what a system does. It's not a cause of things. But a radioactive decay can happen because of weak interactions, but weak interactions do not cause any individual atom to decay. It's an entirely stochastic process.
The radioactive element was made. It was caused by cosmic rays bombarding nitrogen atoms. That's what created the carbon-14.
Was formed, yes. But that's not what causes carbon-14 to decay. Cosmic rays don't cause carbon-14 to decay.
Well,
that's a stochastic process.
The decay is there because it was initially created by the bombardment of cosmic rays, and then it's the imbalance. Hold on. It's the imbalance. It was the imbalance. The imbalance of the energy within the nucleus is the decay process, but it was caused by cosmic rays, lightning, nuclear weapons, whatever you'd like to claim as the cause. It is caused. Otherwise, we wouldn't have carbon-14. We wouldn't have any of the heavier elements.
Yeah, we would. You see, you're talking about cause into what makes an element radioactive, which is not what I'm talking about. I'm asking what causes the radioactive decay, not what makes the atom a radioactive atom.
And I explained to you,
it's the part of reality.
It's the discharge of the imbalance of energy within the nucleus, and it tries to go back to its original neutral state, the daughter element.
I mean, that could pass for accurate, but it's a little bit different than that.
You get like a B-.
It is instability in the nucleus of the atom. That's why they undergo radioactive decay, and weak interactions have a play in that. But you aren't going to be able to say that's what's going to make the atom undergo decay, and this is when it's going to happen, because it's stochastic. You cannot determine those things. You cannot do it.
Okay, what makes it go back to its daughter element?
Radioactive decay.
And what causes radioactive decay?
There isn't a cause for it in this traditional sense of the word.
Well, it became the element became radioactive to begin with.
Yeah, well, I already addressed that. We're not talking about what causes an atom to become a radioactive atom. We're talking about why the atom decays once it's already radioactive. You can make
You're playing semantics again, mate. You're playing semantics.
I'm defining a difference between what you're referring to and trying to tell you that you are not addressing what I'm actually talking about. I understand what you're talking about. You're saying, well, cosmic rays can cause a carbon atom to become specifically the carbon-14 isotope, and then it's a radioactive isotope. But that doesn't tell us when that carbon-14 atom will undergo the actual decay event. Those are not the same thing. You're talking about the former. I'm talking about the latter.
I just find that semantics, really.
Well, everything is semantical. Literally, any discussion is a semantics discussion. I mean, if you want to get that technical.
Are you there? Are you there, John? I'm done with this guy.
Well, yeah, I understand. Yeah, the problem with your position is if you want to play semantic games, then there is absolutely no point even having any discussion. I also don't understand why atheists get so adamant about their positions if it's literally all BS and there is absolutely no ultimate truth other than semantic interpretation. Then what's the point of existence? What's the point of even questioning your existence? And why are you even here in the conversation? I mean, it's where it really gets down to is like we can always come up with some new interpretation of something. Everything is subject to relativity. Therefore, we actually don't know what the hell we're talking about on anything. And
I think that
people read up on the issues. No,
not nice to talk to you all guys again. Okay, I'm leaving.
Great.
God bless you, George.
I enjoy conversations with the guy. He doesn't insult, but I understood what he was saying. It straightforwardly, it wasn't in reference to what I was talking about. That's all. I was just trying to explain that to him.
Okay. Anyway,
I think what he meant was you're just switch on.
Hey,
Go ahead, John.
We're going to get off of the quantum mechanics discussion. We're going to talk about other stuff. So let's get back into things about the debate tonight.
Cool.
Hey man, could I actually could I pose a suggestion?
Sure.
I think that you and I maybe fall on different ends of the debate as it stood tonight. Do you mind motivating kind of like how we got from assuming, let's just, assume that you require consciousness in order to have material. Where do we get to soul from? And the God? Can we make just the really quick summary moves from, I guess, that claim to theism? Or is that too complicated of a set of movements?
No, I mean the aspect of
well, we didn't get there from talking about the soul. We got there from talking about why materialism doesn't make sense as an effort to get to the question of the soul.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the atheist, anti-theist position of there is no soul is ultimately dependent upon dualism being 100% false.
See, but you're presenting atheism as having a tenet that soul.
Wait, no. I want to hear more about.
No. The point I'm making is that if dualism is true, then atheism is standing on very shaky legs. And
atheism in itself, or atheism in Christianity?
I'm talking about atheism in general.
Okay.
This is the point I was making a few minutes ago in the context of like why you need to ask these kinds of questions that we've been, things we were discussing about before, is because the atheists very often want to do a full jump like you just did to, is it Christianity? And it's like, no, you fucking idiots. You first have to address the premise of, is it the reasonable conclusion that a higher power exists and is required for your existence? If so, then you go look for which one is the correct one.
Well, in my case,
trying
to defend being called a fucking idiot, I'm just saying that in these conversations,
it's
typically talking about the clinical.
I didn't direct that at you. I was talking about the atheist worldview in general.
I'm just trying to make sure that you don't conflate Christianity.
Okay, so anyway, you ask a question and then you start talking over me. I don't think so. The point that's being made is. The point that's being made is cool. What?
Sorry, I just wanted to formally say I don't think that was really cool. I think you could have handled that better. But go on.
Anyway, I've been letting you guys talk for quite some time now, and I'm going to insert myself, and I'm not going to be talked over. It's not that complicated of a premise. The entire point that's being made in all this is, if you're going to even have a conversation about the soul, whether the soul exists, is you have to ask these ultimate root questions. And if you don't ask the ultimate root questions and even remotely address them, then all you're doing is dancing around 17 layers up from the actual ultimate root of the question and the ultimate decision and the conclusions that can be met. And the point where I was going with all this is that the very standard position of atheists is, not all, obviously, but a significant percentage, is to avoid the root questions and rely ultimately on strict materialism and we can't prove it, therefore it's false, therefore you're a god of the gaps crazy person. I mean that's where things, I've been engaged in a crap load of these debates, and that's where they always end up, is at that position. And which is why I'm saying you have to look at these other components and then extrapolate out to whether or not you're going to argue over Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, Buddhism, whatever. If you don't look at the other components of the our existence in general, you're never going to come to any rational conclusion. All right, I'm going to shut up. You guys can talk.
No, I think that's fair.
I just wanted to add a comment on the talking over discussion, because this is something that I just see happen a lot, especially if people have been on Discord. I'm sure that most people, if not all of us here, have been on Discord. That sometimes I don't think that it's necessarily somebody's purposefully talking over, but I think that there can be delays in people's computers, and then if somebody talks and that like two people go to talk at the same time, and then one of them pauses, and then they both go again, and I think that we always need to take a step back and make sure that we're not just a principle of charity, that people aren't purposefully trying to talk over somebody, because there can be delays, and there's a lot of people, a lot of ideas, a lot of people want to talk, and when there's pauses, like I said, you get more than one person that might jump in there. So just let's all try to remember that.
Fair enough. Were you talking? I mean,
no, I thought Jay-Z was gonna say. He sounded like
okay.
No, I think.
Yeah, I was like, Jay-Z,
totally
go ahead.
Thanks, guys. No, I agree with that in principle. I think everyone's doing a pretty good job, given the fact it's like pretty late. I want to ask LPP this one question, because I think that's right. I'm following where you're going. And it's like, if we need consciousness in order to get to a Big Bang or a beginning to the universe, then what the hell is that? That becomes a very interesting question. So how confident are you in the in that proposition in the first place, that we need some kind of consciousness to get to material? Would you say like you're pretty sure that's, I mean, yeah, I just, because it seems like it all really hinges on that before I even start taking it super seriously as a question. So there seems to be some physicists who do believe strongly in this whole the necessity of consciousness. There's some that I would assume are more strict materialists. I want to know, like, how, not only like it seems like you believe in it, but like how much do you believe in it, do you think? Or how much do you think the evidence justifies that belief? Or do you think it is kind of more of an open question in the literature?
Well, I mean, there's open questions in every aspect of science. I mean, what I find ironic is that the atheists, the loudmouth atheists in academia, and then obviously their trickle-down effect into the YouTube world, in topics such as evolution, abiogenesis, and this question we've been discussing in terms of the consciousness and the measurement problem, it's some of the only topics in science that they argue so adamantly it's absolutely not this one. And this must not be the case. And which I find very ironic. And it's like, okay, well, that's fascinating. But to answer your question in relation to existence, I mean, to me, it seems like the very rational conclusion when you look at things from a macro level, from the big picture. Like if you try to like take everything down, like I'm only going to look at this little subset in the from a myopic perspective, and I'm going to stay buried inside of the walls of this microcosm, then yeah, it's easy to explain away all sorts of things. When you try to look at things from a macro view, and it's like, well, okay, maybe I can come up with an explanation that does not require the overarching design aspect in this little subset. Okay, cool. But from the big picture, that's, to me, some of the stuff just gets dumb. Like when you look, obviously there's all the aspects of the fine-tuning problems in the universe, and then you get down into abiogenesis and biology and genetics and all these different pieces, and it's like, okay, cool. So if you explained one of them, but now you're talking about explaining like away all of these ridiculous amounts of components.
Oh no. So
Hang on. I'm getting to my point here, which is now when you think about it in relation to something as simple as, I say, quote unquote simple, as the consciousness problem. It's like when you look at all the different requirements and things that have to be accounted for, the rational conclusion, in my opinion, is the consciousness component. Good.
So it sounds actually like now it's not so much that the proposition we need consciousness in order to get material. It's not so much that is that we're proving that solely on the basis of kind of the way theoretical physics works. It seems like we're also looking at like you are also looking at I guess different fields of science and looking at different anomalies and seeing like, oh, the theistic explanation of the world does make sense here in this regard, or like there's this anomaly that's unexplained, or and that's kind of how I think that's part of like maybe why you really do hold this belief that consciousness, right? We'll come back to this proposition that consciousness needs to be around in order.
Well, there's the consciousness component, obviously from the QM side we've been discussing, but the consciousness extrapolates out into, okay, well, if earlier we were discussing the whole premise of semantic meaning. It's like, okay, so there's semantics in this. We've got all 5 aspects of information that are required for life to exist. I mean, they're fundamental components of it, and it's like, okay, when you start to look through all these different pieces of the puzzle and you see different elements of in my opinion, obvious foreknowledge and structure and logic gates and if-then variables and all this kind of stuff they're fundamental to biological systems. It's like, oh, okay. And that's why I made the point earlier, like, unless you're willing to argue that, Google search algorithm could create itself, and the systems that enable us to have this conversation right now are exponentially more complicated than that. Yeah, good luck. I mean, that's my point. You're having to remove things that in no other context you would be considered rational to conclude did not require an intelligent agent prior to. And obviously, if you're an intelligent agent, you've got consciousness in this context, right? Or you're a pre-programmed AI. Like right now, we're trying to recreate or trying to create, dynamic AI systems that can leverage machine learning to be, make modifications on the fly. Like, what the hell do y'all think is going on in your body right now? We've got machine learning AI in full scale operation, and it's being executed in a controlled function. I mean, it's freaking nuts. And I'm like, we're arguing that this came into existence through undirected process. No, I don't think so. Anyway.
Well, it's not that it was undirected. It's that it wasn't directed by a conscious being. Like nature, like people evolve, organisms evolving in their own environment. And you're making the equivalence that human consciousness or the soul or the self or whichever thing.
No, I'm saying that what I'm saying is what's trying to be explained from quote unquote nature is you're having to apply. If you actually look at what supposedly nature and the environment has created, then you have to give consciousness to nature, quote unquote. I mean, there's no other way around it. I mean, you got when you have like the level of if-then logic that is clear.
Do you mean causality?
No, I'm talking about. Well, I mean, there's causal aspects of it, but I'm saying no. When you talk about the different if-thens in terms of genetics,
are you talking Boolean algebra? Boolean logic?
There's Boolean logic in genetics.
Well, yeah, because we use Boolean logic to help describe it. We invented Boolean logic. That's not like an inherent aspect of reality. That's just something that humans invented.
Okay.
Is this just another way of saying like that there need to be a lot of unlikely conditions in order for life to get off the ground, in order for
No. Well, I mean,
No.
there's that. Obviously, there's that as well. But no, you have to talk about.
Well, unlikely.
And Leophilus, we're not, the Boolean logic gate aspect of you still have to the application of like we discovered the application of Boolean logic. Yes, Boolean figured out how to interpret it and be able to execute it. But the premise, the fundamentals already existed to enable Boolean logic.
Well, Boolean logic,
I mean,
describes something that happens accurately is why.
Yeah, that's all of
phenomenal.
mathematics. It's just another descriptive tool that's a convention of the human mind applied to the reality that humans exist in as a means of measuring and quantifying and
blah,
describing.
blah, blah, blah. Yes, I get it.
But that doesn't mean that algebra actually is what it is. It's just what describes what is actually there.
Exactly.
Right,
Just
and
like Feynman diagrams don't actually, I mean, they represent particle interactions, but that's not
obviously
what it actually looks like.
Obviously, the point is that if you, never mind. And Leophilus, man, dude, you are not going to go down it's just the interpretation aspect, because you know the entire point that's being made, and it's really freaking obnoxious. And I've already gone down this rabbit hole.
I honestly don't know what you're talking
about. I don't know what's point.
Wait. I got a question for Theophilus and Susan.
Okay, I'm taking a break for a while. You guys have fun. Nobody ask me any more questions. I got to take a break. I've been talking for too long.
Okay.
I've had a long ass day. I was working at 5 o'clock this morning. So
is the stream ending or?
No, I'm just taking a break. Nobody else has me.
Okay.
I got a quick question.
Hold on. Sunflower.
I had a question for Theophilus and Susan. So
I got a quick question for everybody.
Hold on.
What do you guys think?
Let's just go in order. Let's just go in order.
Igor, you'll get a chance. We're not. Yeah. Okay. So I posed this question during the debate. I don't know if you guys saw it, but so I think there's a hard problem in determinism as it maps onto at least the illusion of human free will, and I'll phrase it like this. Hypothetically, determinism dictates that it should be at least possible that we can take the position of every particle, crunch the numbers, and determine anyone's future behaviors and actions, right? Because there's no actual free will. It's an illusion of the brain. If we just simply have a hypothetical supercomputer, we can plug the position of every particle in and then predict what any individual is going to do. And then the question is, if I do that, I get data, and then I present to, let's say I present to you, Theophilus. I say, oh, Theophilus, I just crunched the numbers in the next 10 years of your life. Here's a detailed representation of everything you're going to do. And you look at the data and you say, you know what? I'm gonna do something else instead because I don't want to do that. How is that possible? And does that not invoke some sort of supernatural will?
Can I take the first response to that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So what you're saying is, I'm not gonna try to make out what you're saying. We all heard. Sorry, but the argument is flawed because you making a list of things, drawing out all of the all of the cause and effects of what this person is going to be doing, for the rest of 10 years of their life, and then showing them that book that introduces new information.
No. So hypothetical supercomputer, you're plugging in the original position of every particle from the Big Bang. So this
but then you're changing that person's environment by showing them the book. If you have a book
you're not. No. Causal physics. You're plugging in the exact position of every particle in the origin of the universe. And
what do you mean when you say particle? Like atoms or actual elementary particles? Because the only way you can get information.
Let's just take it as it is.
If determinism is true, it is hypothetically possible that with an advanced enough computer, you could just simply crunch the numbers on the position of every particle or force in the origin, in the initial state of the universe, and there's no reason you should not be able to then generate data that predicts everything else. That is literally what.
Would though.
No, that's what determinism is.
No.
No.
No, because there's so many things in reality that are stochastic, like at the quantum level. In order to know the position of something at the quantum level, you have to measure it. And if you measure it, you're interacting with the system and you're changing it. Like Sue said.
Whoa. By crunching, by plugging in the original positions of the particles, you would predict that you would measure it, and thus you would predict the result that came from that measurement. True or false?
Oh,
True or
I
false?
don't know if I follow that, because you can only plug in the numbers of the position if you have the positions, and you can only have the positions if you've made the measurement. And if you've made the measurement, you've interacted with the system and affected it. So you've changed it.
Well, hold on. Now you're invoking. Wait a second. I'm saying before there were even observers or measurers involved, we're going back to the origin conditions of the universe, right? The initial conditions of matter. Okay.
Yeah.
Crunch the numbers on that. That should predict that observers arise from that. That should predict that those observers then re-observe the data they're viewing. Everything should follow. This is what determinism is.
Okay.
You should be able to predict that the observer.
Reality is not fundamentally deterministic.
Oh, what? Oh,
well, that's very.
It's a chaos space.
Well,
that doesn't mean that you can predict. It means that everything comes from a list of things, but it's not deterministic in that not everything is assured to happen, but everything can only happen one way.
Your hypothetical supercomputer could only get a very rough approximation of.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait. Let me respond to this.
No, Jay-Z hasn't spoken yet. Can we let Jay-Z speak?
Leo Villas, if there was never, let's crunch the numbers on a universe where there are no observers. There's just matter.
Well, observer in quantum mechanics means something different than probably how you're using it.
What? Well, what?
So
what do you mean?
The term observer does not mean that you have a consciousness in quantum mechanics.
No. I don't understand how.
Oh, when you say remove observers, an electron can observe things if it interacts with them. That interaction is an observation, as the word observation is defined.
Well, then you're invoking an inherently supernatural aspect of causal physics. If it's not, if it's not determined by the initial conditions, then it's supernatural by definition.
No.
How no? How no?
Can I ask that Jay-Z get a chance to speak?
So is determinism true or not?
What? So what do you mean by determinism?
Okay, when the initial states of matter and particles are set in motion, is there a determined causal linear sequence that already exists, or is it subject to some sort of other, literally supernatural force? I don't like what is it. It's either determined or it's not.
No, that's not
dichotomous there. The classical level of reality is deterministic to a degree. The quantum level is not. That's why you cannot know both the positions and the momentums of an electron simultaneously.
Well, then that just says that determinism is wrong.
Well, but it's not, though, because the classical level of reality is deterministic. I mean, Newton's laws of motion show that plainly. He used them to predict things deterministically, but you can't do that in quantum mechanics.
But they didn't.
That's why you had to develop quantum mechanics.
Wait. So they didn't prove everything. So I'm saying, how do you account for the things that classical mechanics don't predict?
Quantum mechanics.
And that's not determined.
No, it's indeterminate. It's stochastic.
Wait, what? Wait, say that again?
It's stochastic.
It's stochastic? Can you spell that word for me so I can look it up?
S-T-O.
Just explain what it is.
Stochastic is, it's, a lot of people say it's like randomness, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. It's better to just look it up because I can never remember the technical definition, but it's pretty good.
So like
S-T-O-C-H-A-S-T-I-C.
Randomly determined.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing.
It's paradoxical.
And that's why I don't like that definition, because how is something randomly determined?
Exactly. It's paradoxical.
It's essentially just.
Well, I think definition is a little more colloquial.
Do you consider it comprehensible, or do you consider it just like something you don't understand that exists?
The definition?
Do you understand the concept of stochasticism?
Yes. Stochasticity, yes.
So you feel as though you have a full comprehension of it and how it operates in the world.
Well, stochasticity isn't like a thing that operates in the world. It's just a way that we describe what
It's
we
a
see.
proposed mechanism for basically all the stuff determinism can't explain.
No, it's not a mechanism. It's a description of what we observe. Quantum mechanics is stochastic. That's it's a fact.
Well, so all you're saying is like there's unexplained, there's things we can't determine about reality. We're gonna make up a word for it and then say that, but that's still part of determinism.
We make up every word. Please
No.
Do you mind if I butt in?
When you can predict
Yeah,
something,
Jay-Z, please do go.
Is that okay?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to. I kind of want to keep grilling Leo Phileas on this.
Grilling someone on this isn't going to get. We're going off topic here. We're trying to talk about the question that Sunflower posed.
So far, this is like actually pretty interesting how you can get determinism on the classical level and indeterminism on the quantum
We're talking
level.
about a misunderstanding of what determinism is.
No. So I looked up.
I want to hear.
No, you're saying that everything should happen one way. Determinism is that everything can only have happened one way.
Have happened. Why are you using past tense? Determinism.
Because everything can only have happened one way.
Determinism is once particles are set in motion. Determinism is once particles are set in motion, there is only one trajectory they can have. Period.
That's
that's determinism.
That is flatly wrong.
Okay, explain to me what determinism is then.
Well, no. I'm not saying that your definition of determinism is wrong. I'm saying that once particles are set in motion, there's only one trajectory. That would be wrong. So that.
Well, then what? So if it's not causal physics that accounts for the.
It isn't not causal.
What is causal?
No. But all you guys are doing, you're alluding to a esoteric part of the observable world and saying, yes, it makes no sense and it's random, but we just have a word for it, so therefore we're allowed to integrate it into our deterministic worldview. That doesn't make any sense.
What?
Kind of makes sense to me, man.
Yeah, I see us looking at something and describing what it is that we see.
No, stochastic, literally the definition is randomly determined. Sorry, my mic just fell
Actual stochasticity needs to be understood and like be explained by a teacher in a course. It can't just be it's a very rough definition.
Please. That sounds like a high school dropout's fucking explanation of something, dude.
It sounds like a college student's
How about you explain it to me then? Explain to me stochasticity, man.
I'm not researched in it. Ask Leo.
Stochastic is used in many different fields, particularly where stochastic or random processes are used.
You guys invoked the concept of stochasticity. I'd like you to explain it to
Leo
me.
Phileas did.
I'm a layman. I was
just trying to.
I'm a layman. You're an expert. Explain to me what stochastic is.
Leo Phileas is not an expert.
Oh, so you guys actually
that is a really
you guys
good way of
don't know
knowing
what it is. It's a word that refers to.
No, we know what the word means.
Well,
Iger television. I can't hear what you're saying. I don't know what you're saying.
I'm looking at the word.
I had a quick question for you guys. You guys heard of?
Who is you guys?
Everybody in the chat or in the stream. You guys heard of an experiment about the 21 grams? It was done like in the 1900s. There was a movie about it in 2003. And getting back into the souls and getting away from all the theories on top of theories on top of theories to try to make sense of godless world. But yeah, apparently back in 1907 there was an experiment done by Duncan McDouglas, and he did an experiment where he pretty much weighted people as they were dying right after they died.
And they lost weight when the soul died, dude. Like
that's right. And
Igor, can you?
Sunflower let Iger speak about it back in 2003 with which I find interesting because if you believe in the Illuminati and the synagogue of Satan and how they control our education and media through secret societies, so it makes it interesting that they actually even went and made a movie about it. There's a good saying in the truther community, they tell the lies in the news and the truth in the movies or something like that.
Which truther community or just the truther community as a whole?
Truther community, like, when you start looking into 9/11 being an inside job and then vaccines, how they actually are bad for you.
But that's the conspiracy theory.
But yeah, I don't want to go into other different conspiracies. I want to stick into the whole 21 grams about the experiment this guy did, how How when
I've not heard of
they waited people, and after they died, they lost 21 grams, and it's back to getting into the souls for the chat. So I want to see what you guys all think about it. Let's do this. I'll give you guys 2 minutes to respond, and I'll start with the first one.
You'll give us 2 minutes. Wow, thank you, moderator. Wow.
Sunflower, don't be
Yeah. I'm gonna moderate this question. What do you guys think about the 20? I mean, it's there. You can just look it up. It comes right up. 1907. Guy did an experiment. Weighted people, and when they died, after they died, they lost 21 grams. And you can say it was due because they crapped or peed or whatever, but that was still on the scale. So I want to see what you guys think about that.
This should be quite sift. So Carl, I have no idea how to pronounce. I'm going to just give this my best shot. Kruzelnick.
Just skip it.
I'm assuming Great Myth Conceptions, the science behind the myths, on pages 199 to 201. Robert, not Robert, L. Park. Superstition, Belief in the Age of Science, Princeton University, pages 102, 103. One more here, give me a second. And Bruce Hood, Supersense, From Superstition to Religion, The Brain Science of Belief, page 151. McDougall's experiment has been rejected by the scientific community, and he has been accused of both flawed methods and outright fraud in obtaining his results. Noting that only one of the 6 patients measured supported the hypothesis, Karl Kruzelnicki has stated the experiment is a case of selective reporting, as McDougall ignored the majority of the results. Kruzelnicki also criticized the small sample size and questioned how McDougall was able to determine the exact moment when a person had died, considering the technology available at the time. Physicist Robert L. Park has written that McDougall's experiments, quote, are not regarded today as having any scientific merit, end quote, and the source for that is the one that I cited already, Superstition, Belief in the Age of Science from Princeton University. And psychologist Bruce Hood wrote that, quote, because the weight loss was not reliable or replicable, his findings were unscientific, end quote. Professor Richard Wiseman stated that within the scientific community, the experiment is confined to, quote, large pile of scientific curiosities labeled almost certainly not true, end quote.
I like that. All right, what about you, JC? What do you think?
This is maybe going to sound condescending or whatever, but
yeah.
I think
I get condescended a lot, believe it or not, so I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah, well, it's because that you hold the views that you do. The second that you start doing 9/11 truther kind of stuff, and you put it into maybe you have some really good views that are well reasoned, but the fact that you have some of these other views kind of makes me like kind of doubt your mind as like a truth finding system. That's all I'd say to that. And then this is one example of that. Seems definitely trust like the scientific people. I'm not even.
He didn't actually. He just had a bunch of people.
I know. I didn't respond directly to the 21.
Yeah.
Igor,
fair.
Igor, as a Christian, as someone who believes in God,
yeah,
it's not uncommon to feel like you have some kind of smoking gun, and you want to come in and you start saying like, guys, did you hear about this? You hear about this? Listen, I'm not trying to be mean, just like Jay-Z said, not trying to be condescending. When you invoke the thing you just invoked, it's not on the same level as the stuff we're discussing right now. It's simply not. It's not.
No, you guys are talking about like quantum physics.
Well, sure, but the real question is, Igor, the real question is, your voice is important, your opinion is important, but when you just sort of jump into a group of people that are talking about something else and you start saying like, guys, I have something. It's like, is it appropriate in this context, or do you just kind of like want to?
I mean, it's kind of relevant because
actually, I thought he was being.
It's not really relevant.
Phyllis gave a good answer to it, but other than attacking whatever my
no, Igor, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. I'm on your side, but it wasn't appropriate or relevant.
Sunflower, let me ask you something. Do you think the Earth is young, or do you think it's 4 billion years old?
Yeah, great question, Igor. Yeah, let's talk privately. I'll give you my email.
It's just a yes or no question.
Well, no, but again, it's like
I'm bringing that up.
When I'm very intuitive. I know that some people like to come into chats and drop a bomb and go, oh,
Yeah.
I got the smoking gun. It's like, look, dude, we could talk about that.
It's an interesting.
When you reference the weight loss of the soul, it's not. It's just simply not pertinent. It's not something that
most religious people I know.
It's not something that this group of people is currently grappling with. I'm not saying it's like stupid or irrelevant, but it's just it's a little bit inappropriate, right? Like you wouldn't, you wouldn't barge into an algebra class and
start teaching medieval history.
Hey, I actually think the question was respectful. It was a little bit of a tangent, but I
didn't say I said inappropriate.
So asking can I just do a full thing?
I like feel good with how he actually had a reply to that, other than he actually. Well, go ahead, JC. My bad. Go on.
I just want to point, like, from one person. I think that if anyone's been like kind of disrespectful and talking over people, like, it's you, Sunflower, and that you're going at and I'd like to just say, like, if you're going at Igor for this, like, I actually think that he kind of came into the conversation pretty well. And, like, 21 grams it's ridiculous, and the truther stuff is ridiculous. But I don't think he was trying to be rude about it. And what makes me
well, if you rewind the video, if you rewind the actual recording, you'll see that there was us talking, and then as soon as he came in, while we were having a conversation, he kind of said, like, wait, guys, wait, guys, I have a point.
Yeah. But then
did that or did that not happen?
You told me to wait. I would be my guest eventually, and then I waited. I waited for a while, and then I came back.
And that's what I was referring to. I
let you guys go on about what you were talking about.
Well, I was referring to the
way from souls existing or not. It was going into quantum physics and all kinds.
So I was referring to the way you kind of came in and just started saying, I have the answer, guys. I have the question. Everyone else, shut up. I have it. Listen. Well, that happened. You could rewind it. That did happen.
All right, whatever. Fair enough, bro.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's time to move on to the conversation, I think, and go back to the talk about determinism and.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, stochasticity. If you just rename stochasticity as God's hand, would you be as okay with it as a concept, Leophilus?
I mean, if you wanted to call it that, yeah, but it wouldn't actually literally translate to an actual God that actually exists.
But it's not
calling that.
But it doesn't.
Can I make a comment real quick?
But wait a second. You realize the definition of it is like, let me pull it back up again. Okay. Randomly determined, having a random probability distribution or pattern that may be analyzed statistically, but may not be predicted. If it's impossible to predict, then it's as reasonable that it's supernatural as it is natural.
Can I say something?
To predict isn't really accurate. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's just kind of like going back to tracking how we got here, and it's related, I promise. So there are some questions about like what we were talking about, and right now we're talking about determinism. And the question that Sunflower raised was, if you could predict everything at its root and extrapolate outwards, and show that extrapolation to someone, could they then choose to not do one of the things that was extrapolated? And that relates to the soul, to talking about if a soul exists, because if they can do something different, then implies free will, which which goes to the having a soul, or can be talked about in terms of being some type of proof of having some external free will acting agent that's outside of the material world. And so, like, but stochasticity.
Thank you. It's a tough one. It's like linoleum.
Stochastic, whatever.
Whatever, I'm over it.
Yeah. What that is not that everything is random. It's that we can't predict it, and that it acts in a way that we can't predict. Yeah. It's basically just chaos to us.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait. Analyzed, but not exactly determined.
Okay, perfect. This is why I invoked the hypothetical supercomputer. So in the same way, we've made advances, like in the same way that we couldn't calculate exact things 500 years ago, then now we can get closer and closer. The scientific proposition is not that there are certain things within particle physics that are fundamentally not uncalculable. It's that we just don't have the proper information yet. So that's why I invoked the hypothetical supercomputer. Let's go 50,000 years in the future. I'm saying, are there things that are actually stochastic, as in they inherently can never be predicted, or is it just simply we don't have the proper understanding particle field equations? That's the question I have.
Well,
yeah,
but that's a different question than you originally asked.
Yeah,
though.
and that
That's
wasn't really
way
a good
different.
characterization of stochasticity. It's not that you
That's-
cannot ever determine it. It's that it's that you can the best way to explain it is to give an example, because that kind of helps people to intuitively understand it. Radioactive decay, being a stochastic process, is a good one to use. So we have half-lives for radioactive isotopes. This tells us, and this goes to why we work with half-lives in nuclear physics, because you can only statistically analyze the system, but you can't actually determine any one of the parts of it. So we can know how long it's going to be until half of a material has decayed, but you cannot, under any circumstances, predict which atom will decay and when. So you can statistically analyze the greater system
until the end of time. We'll never be able to.
Yes,
No. That's my contention.
Never
though.
predict.
No, that's my condition. As science has progressed, every single decade there was someone saying, we're never going to be able to predict this, and then lo and behold, we have now detected gravitational waves. They didn't think that would be possible. Look. They didn't think we'd ever be able to do that. But lo and behold, well, not before Einstein.
The people who thought
they didn't know that gravity. They didn't even know that gravitational waves would have ever been a real thing before Einstein.
Yeah, still not a real.
No. Even upon even upon the Einstein's advent of relativity, there was a lot of prominent scientists that will probably never actually be able to detect them.
Nobody can ever detect gravitational waves. It's all a myth.
Yes, we can.
It's already been done.
On it numerous times.
Igor.
So hold on, let me ask him a quick question here. I just want to make sure, Igor, that you have an understanding of this before I even attempt to engage with you, because if you don't, I'm not going to go through a 6-hour lecture trying to educate you on something. You're just going to have to do it yourself. Do you know what an interferometer is and how it works?
I understand that the theory of
what you said you understand. Okay, so what is an interferometer?
Can I respond?
This can't possibly be directly related.
You asked me a question, right? So I understand there's two gravities. You got Newton's gravity that pushes mass to the center of an object that can't.
This is not related.
No. You're not answering my question.
Okay, I'm going. And you got.
But you're not answering my question.
Theory of relativity that explains gravity as the bending.
No, that's general theory of relativity, not special theory. And you're not answering my question. Do you know what an interferometer is?
I never heard of that.
Yes or no?
Tell me what it is.
So an interferometer is something that utilizes waves and how they change and the interference pattern that they create as they cross, how it changes. That's why we use lasers. There are two lasers at, say, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, or LIGO, in Nevada or Arizona, somewhere down there. And there's also another one in like Japan or someplace in Asia or Europe. So we've detected the same things, the same exact signatures from two completely different places on the planet. But you're saying that it's not real. And number two, so we have two lasers shooting lights that cross. So when the gravitational waves come through, and you could do this with sound waves too, if you yelled loud enough close to it, what will happen is those light waves will move like this, and that will affect the interference pattern that's being created. Well, these are in a vacuum chamber, so you literally can't have sound because there isn't an atmosphere there. So we know it's not sound doing this. The only other thing that it could be is if space-time itself, yes. Dude, sound travels to a medium. A vacuum means no medium, which means this is why there's no sound in the vacuum of space. You can't scream in the vacuum of space because there's no air to come out of your lungs. So we know for a fact it's not sound. We know that the only other thing it could be, at least reliably, would be actually perturbations in space-time itself moving the lasers. So if you can't explain it better than that, then you would have to concede that it's most likely that this is, at least that it's most likely that these are gravitational waves.
I like how you said most likely, and
Igor.
so it's all theoretical at that point.
No,
Yes,
no,
power.
no.
Do you know what
Igor,
theory is in
Igor,
science?
Igor, people pay thousands of dollars for the 30-second for the 2-minute lesson you were just given on that topic. Please, there's no reason for you to further embarrass yourself. Everything Leo Phillips just said is accurate. And as someone that, no, I'm not being a fucking dick, dude. What do you mean? This guy's trolling.
Hey, Sunflower. I mean, thanks, JC. Appreciate that. Shout out to
No.
You're Sunflower.
We're being trolled. We're being trolled at this
Can
point.
we let Jay-Z speak?
Yeah, go JC. Go ahead. Call me some names. Come on.
No, I'm not, man. It would be
I mean,
like,
not
I do feel like I do feel like it's a little bit of a pearls before swine kind of thing. I would actually like really appreciate it if we could go back to other topics. I want to know, for example, if stochasticity is like always for like the eternity, like for 50,000 years, if that's going to be unquantifiable or unpredictable, like or if like as Sunflower says, like maybe it's not in principle, right, or like definitionally like unpredictable. And in order to do that, like to get to that question, that's a question I want to ask Leo Phileas, because I'm not sure what the answer is. I want to hear what the answer is.
I'm going to steal, man, or at least try to make sure I'm understanding it. Is the question that is stochasticity something that is always the case in a particular scenario, or is there a time when it could be determined?
It's more about the nature of stochasticity. Stochasticity by nature?
Stochasticity is basically a word that explains probabilistic phenomena that we can always determine the probability of it, but we can never measure the precise sort of mechanism or interaction of it. The question that is embedded in that concept is the same way that we've advanced in all fields of science and measurability. I'm asking, is there any aspect of reality and particle physics and causal particle physics that is inherently stochastic in that
the whole thing is
well,
the mathematical underlying of quantum mechanics is called wave mechanics. You only have probabilities. You do not work with absolutes. It's entirely fundamentally stochastic. The quantum level of reality is and always has been and always will be completely stochastic. Now, there are certain things like the mass of, say, the electron, that when we measure that property, it's always going to be the same. But there are reasons for that. But and things like spin, the spin of a particle is always going to be the same. But energy, position, momentum, time, certain properties are going to change. That inherently demonstrates the stochasticity of the quantum level of reality.
Theophilus, you're right in that if we're analyzing these things in real time,
Sunflower, I got a question for you.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah, wait. Sunflower. No, wait.
Okay. So my question is, Theophilus, if we're operating from a perspective of not the observer, of the human observer trying to measure the collapse of the quantum wave, but as the person that, let's say we create a virtual like matrix-like world in which we're aware that we already know that we have the calculations for the observers doing the observations.
Oh no, I think that Leo Phileas explained that. His response would be, correct me if I'm wrong, his response is at the quantum level, it is stochastic. And it will be in whatever stochastic means, I forget, it's like unpredictable or like not
essentially you can't perfectly know what this is going to be. You can get a probability for the different things that it could be, but you don't know which one of those it's going to be.
But that's not
it
true.
Doesn't change.
But because once the wave function does collapse, then it's iterated as true.
Yeah, that once the wave function has undergone collapse.
Exactly. And I'm saying if I'm already aware of how the wave function will collapse, because I'm already aware of how the human doing the experiment is going to do the experiment, then I have all the factors I need. Just remove yourself one step outside of the observer and think about actually being aware of not only the particles that are undergoing the experiment, but of the particles that created the person conducting the experiment. There's no reason you should not be able to put yourself outside.
You're using an intuition from classical mechanics, I think. And what I'm more interested about is like Leophilius is saying, when you get quantum, which is like very unintuitive, apparently there's this thing called stochasticity, and it means that things are like indeterminate no matter how good your magnifying glass is.
Exactly. And see, this is the thing is from uncertainty is that what a lot of people say, oh, well, it tells us that we can't know the position or the momentum of a, and there are other contrapositive properties that you can measure, but position and momentum are usually the two that everybody knows. It's not that it's telling us that we can't know what those are simultaneously. It's telling us the particle literally does not have either until so wave function collapse doesn't tell us essentially what we're going to measure. I mean, we do measure something. What it's telling us is what sorts of forms are going to be taken by the thing that you're measuring. And so if you measure it in different ways, you might measure it to be doing different things. So you can measure something and collapse the wave function and then know what's going on, but only then do you know. You don't. So you might know position, but you don't know momentum.
But what I'm saying is, think about.
And you don't know momentum because it doesn't even have momentum.
No, I know that. But I'm saying if we're people conducting experiments and we're trying to measure things we can't measure, just take a perspective of someone that's outside of this, like, you know, that created a little micro universe and already knows how the people are going to conduct the experiments, and thus knows how the wave function will collapse.
They wouldn't. Knowing how they're going to do the experiment wouldn't tell you how the wave function will collapse or what you're going to observe.
That's where we disagree then.
And we just
but it's not about disagreement. It's about what quantum mechanics says. It doesn't matter if I, and we've done experiments like this. It doesn't matter if you know how I'm going to do the experiment. You're not going to know what I measure. You have to measure it. I can tell you what I measured, but you might get a completely different measurement. Yeah.
No,
we've done experiments all across the globe.
That's not accurate. Wait. Wait. But that implies that I actually know for certain how you're going to do. There's no precedent for another person knowing exactly how another colleague is going to conduct an experiment. That what I'm saying. So I don't see how you're referencing that.
I don't know if I understood what.
So if I crunch the numbers on how you are going to conduct an experiment on the collapsing of the wave function, I know what you're going to do and what you're going to observe.
Then you would just be doing the experiment for me at that point, because you would be doing every little thing that I would be doing. And
no, I'm observing you do. I'm observing you doing it the same way I'm observing like a fucking
Can you two try to steel man each other's points?
I throw a baseball in the air. I watch an ant crawl across the ground. I'm not controlling the ant. I just know how the ant's gonna.
Yeah, but those are classical examples. They wouldn't.
Humans are classical things. Humans
I
are part of the classical model.
You simply cannot extrapolate intuitively classical examples to the quantum level. They just don't work.
No. I'm extrapolating human behavior in terms of I can predict what a human's going to do. Therefore, I can predict how they're going to observe the wave function collapse. Therefore, I can predict the result of the wave function collapsing. Therefore, there's no more uncertainty in the wave function.
Observing the wave function collapse wouldn't tell you anything about it.
What?
Again, you would have to.
Wait. Okay, let's be fair. Those
would be two different
measurements. This is where we disagree. Then, okay. Well, let's at least say we've made some ground here. Me observing the person observing the wave function still collapses.
Because of them, not because of you. So they're getting the measurement. You're not. You still don't know anything about the quantum system that was just measured.
But
they can tell you what they can tell you what they learned about. Yeah, they collapsed it, not you. Your observation of them observing it.
Nonetheless, it collapsed. True or false? Nonetheless, it collapsed.
For them, yes, not for you, because you're not doing the observation.
This is why
there's relativity in quantum mechanics.
Now I'm okay. Well, this is interesting. I'm not trying. I'm not. I swear. I promise. This is actually really interesting to me. Maybe I'm uninformed on some level of quantum physics here, but I wasn't aware that like quantum wave functions can collapse in different positions simultaneously.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's
Like-
just more the weirdness of the quantum level of reality. Sally and Bob can observe the same electron and observe it doing two completely different things.
But at the same exact time?
Yep.
Hmm.
That's called relativity, special relativity.
Well, I don't.
It's also referred to as relativistic quantum mechanics.
Okay. Well, look, I will be humble and I will be totally honest. I guess my.
It's weird, isn't it? It's very weird.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Truth is stranger than fiction. As they say.
I'm glad we at least parsed out the fundamental.
Well, you know what's very interesting about this, something I'm listening to you guys talk, is that what you're now discussing, all of it ultimately goes back to the ultimate root of the consciousness problem. Of the two different people can be observing a electron that's acting in two different ways at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
What's the key variable? There's two different observers. And by the way, Leophilus, last month, the whole thing you were trying to debunk on the delayed choice and such, there's another paper published on that thing of like, hey, no, we have not solved this.
But they have. I will go with the consensus of theoretical physicists.
Oh, here we go with consensus. Yes.
I have an honest question, a very honest question.
I love it. No,
somebody who's not a professional in a field, should they go with?
No, we're done with you, bro. You talk of all this mad game all the time, and then now you're going to be like, oh, I'm just going to go with the consensus.
I thought he was actually making really good points, though. I wanted to hear what he had to say on that last part.
All right, go ahead. You can go back to you go back to you guys. You go right to you guys' conversation. Good.
Yeah, I don't know where that mute came from. That was not. Anyway, I was just wanting to ask the question of if somebody's not professional, should they go with what they say? I just want to know the answer to that question. Nope, I cannot get an answer out of theists. I can't.
It depends on when your question on like should you follow consensus.
If you're not a professional, should you? Like if you go to 100 doctors and 90 of them tell them you have cancer and 10 don't, should you believe? If you're not,
almost
definitely depends on the field.
That's a case by case. That's a case by case basis for me. I mean,
I'm sorry, man. Like I'm actually I'm going to grad school right now for psychology, and there's been a consensus in the 90s that like depression, anxiety, and stuff was caused by a brain chemical imbalance. It's not true. There's also been a consensus that cognitive behavioral therapy is the gold standard of psychotherapy, and that it's by far more effective than any other kind of psychotherapy. That's actually just also not true. There are lies that are kind of thrown in, or half truths that are thrown in, and there are sociological and economic reasons for it that stand outside of just the raw. There's a reason why psychiatrists went that way. So maybe it's not the case in physics, and maybe physics is a little bit more pure. And there's
definitely.
I would be.
Okay, hang on 1 second. Leopolis, hang on 1 second, dude. If you operate from the perspective, not you, Jay-Z, Leopolis, if you operate from the perspective that physics is just more pure, dude, you're living in a ridiculous fantasy land.
I don't know if you understood what he meant by pure.
We're talking about consensus. He's directly challenging consensus not being you shouldn't just go on with consensus because constantly things are being discovered to be absolutely false or to be debunked. And that happens all the time in physics. It happens in pretty much every aspect of science. You discover you were totally wrong. I mean, for goodn's sake, I'm 36 years old. I cannot tell you the number of times that salt has gone from being horrible to good to horrible to good. I mean, just use that as an example. It causes this disease. Oh, now it's backward in physics. I've observed things over my life of things that were proven beyond doubt and then gotten debunked. If you look at history, this happens over and over and over again, which is why I get so much entertainment out of people saying, "Oh, consensus." It's really, at the level of expansion of knowledge that humanity has been going under over the last century. To anybody to operate from the perspective that consensus is what we should rely upon. When we've discovered more stuff, we've discovered more things and had to pivot from those positions more times in the last 100 years than we have in the history, all of recorded history. So to operate from the fact that consensus is the be-all, end-all, it's either a naive perspective or one of pure denial. I yield. Go ahead, Jay-Z.
I wasn't saying that consensus was be-all, end-all.
I said go ahead, Jay-Z.
It's interesting though, like, because if you get too far away from the consensus or from anything, then we're in, like, flat Earth theory, and like we actually, that's ridiculous. So there's definitely some kind of Aristotelian mean here, where we need to maybe trust the torchbearers of knowledge.
Can I respond to that? Because I got to bounce anyway. So
No,
like 60 seconds.
you can. Yeah, LPP, can you just mute this guy? He's kind of a troll.
Can I bounce real quick? I'm about to leave.
If you're leaving, I'll give you 30 seconds, and then
Yeah. Give me 30 seconds. I'm about to leave. Like I agree with what you say. Logical, possible, probable. Just because somebody says consensus and you think you live in a heliocentric model, since JC brought up the flat Earth, who I like a lot. So if you could throw a link in the chat, I would like to subscribe to JC, or in the private chat. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave you guys with God is real. The Illuminati has been lying to us ever since we were born. For real, no lie. They lied to us about everything.
8 seconds.
All the media. So I'm gonna leave you with a serenity prayer and the sinner's prayer. God, please grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the strength to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I got the sinner's prayer. It's dear Lord Jesus, I know that I'm a sinner, and I ask for your forgiveness. I believe you died for my sins and rose from the dead. I turn from my sins and invite you to come into my heart and life. I want to trust you and follow you as my Lord and Savior. In your name, amen. But yeah, God bless y'all.
Amen.
I hope if you are Christians that, or if you're looking for truth, there's no better truth than the Bible. And I'm sorry you wasted thousands of dollars, like Sunflower said earlier, in your indoctrination, but it's not true. Anyways, God bless you all and have a good night or good morning, wherever you're at. Peace.
Good night, man.
Can I have a word on the consensus thing? Which is just going to be like somewhat in favor, but also like some truth to what Jay-Z said about how consensus can be just extremely incorrect and just purposefully false. Because like consensus in the form of like proven and reliable, like demonstrated facts in terms of like physics and like gravity is real and that's consensus, and like relativity is real and that's consensus, and like saying that consensus is unreliable and not specifying where your level of consensus and like the difference between theory and consensus, not differentiating between those two things is like problematic. Yeah, because theory and consensus can it's.
So can I jump in here now? So number one, I do not believe that a consensus is a be-all, end-all. I wasn't stating that they're always correct. I was just asking the question if it's reasonable for someone who's not an expert in a field to trust the academic consensus in that particular field. Is it reasonable to do that? I mean, obviously consensi can be wrong, but if you're not a professional, wouldn't you want? I think Jay-Z said it, is that we kind of should trust the torchbearers of truth, or however you put it. I thought it was really cool. But yeah, consensus can be wrong, has been wrong, but that has happened less and less as we have advanced scientifically. So if we go back 500 years, the consensus was obviously very different on things than it is today, but they didn't have the scientific capabilities that we have today either. And consensi change frequently. To me, I think that just bolsters the case, because that's how we know that the science is working. Because the only way that the professionals can know that they are wrong is to use science to show that the science was previously wrong. So consensi can change, which is the plural for consensus, can change.
Is it really?
I don't think that it's unreasonable. And again, this is because if you are a professional in the field, and they were going against what a consensus was saying, I would hear them out, because they have that academic rigor to back up what they're saying.
Okay, hang on. We have to address that point there, because there are, in context of different things we discussed tonight, they might not be in the quote unquote consensus, but there are people directly challenging what the consensus is saying. But then people such as yourself say that no, we need to just ignore the people that are challenging the consensus because the consensus doesn't agree with what they're saying.
Right, but that's because they haven't proven what they're saying.
So that literally debunks the entire point you were just making.
No, because they're not proving what they're saying.
Yeah, they're challenging it, but you have to overturn the consensus, not just challenge it. You have to actually show.
The consensus. No. And in many aspects of science, the consensus has not proven their position.
Well, of course not.
So if somebody comes up with an alternative, and
they
then
just need to prove it,
and then it's just no. If the original has not been proven, but it's like, oh well, we think this seems like a good idea. But it hasn't been proven. And then somebody else comes up with an alternative that also has evidence towards it, and then the consensus just completely dismisses the new one. The other person isn't required to prove that theirs is 100% true in order for it to not be, or to at least be addressed, rather than just being completely dismissed. Oh, this isn't the same as the consensus, therefore we're not even going to give it a modicum of credence until you prove that our consensus is 100% wrong. Like that's illogical.
But I got two things.
In actually bringing up new debate and looking at new topics or new potential interpretations or new discoveries, if you're just going to debunk anything or dismiss anything that challenges the current status quo just because you can't prove it 100%, like that's stupid.
Wait, I got two things to say. That first, what is the Jay-Z? I saw you typing. Is the political consensus actually consensi? No.
No,
what is?
I'm sorry.
Consensus?
It's just consensuses. I mean, it's good. It was a good guess. I think it comes from.
It wasn't a guess. It was. I was doing more my own etymological development of it because if you went to the Latin,
this is just like
consensi in the same way that
it doesn't matter.
Yes,
octopus actually isn't octopi or octopuses. It's something really weird. It's like octoposies or something.
Okay, can I have a really quick question?
I actually did have an actual point.
Oh, I have a really quick question. So
can I finish making my 2-point thing?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
It's just that what LPP? So just logical, or like, do you prefer LPP or something?
Let's go. LPP is fine.
LPP, like your thing about you don't need to present like proof or like studies to show that you're right to challenge consensus. It's the same thing that global warming deniers are doing. They're not providing any actual proof of what they're saying is correct. They're just going against the consensus, and that's not an actual like reasoned thing. That's completely different from challenging the consensus with proof of what you're saying. And when I say proof, I mean like it's shown to be more accurate to how things actually are, and more accurate description of how things actually are than the current theory holds to. Like that's just you're saying that global warming deniers are valid because they're just like challenging the consensus and they're not providing any proof of that claim. Which
I do. You don't want to go to that rabbit hole.
I do because
no. Okay, what was just published 3 or 4 weeks ago in relation to the temperature in the Mediterranean?
Dog, just say it
during the Roman Empire.
Dog, you can't. I just say.
It was 3 degrees warmer. So than it is now. So I mean, the point I'm making is that in the context of global warming, yes, no, deny, agree.
Are you a global warming denier?
Am I in terms of climate change? No. In terms of whether or not humans are causing it, absolutely.
No, because the Industrial Revolution. We're not going to get into this. This is so far fucking off.
Well, we've already so thoroughly demonstrated that humans are obviously affecting the planet that it's not even worth discussing it.
Yeah. And we can't get into
the thing that we couldn't affect it, I don't think even makes sense.
Okay. That's neither here nor there. Let me just please let me go back. Theophilus.
Leophilius.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Leophilius. That's my fault.
Shit happens.
In stochasticity, is there like an inherently is there an aspect that the result is not causally linked to prior states of the quantum particle?
Can you reformulate that?
So once whether it's relativistic or not, once a wave function collapses, we don't have a causal measurable history of how it got there.
What do you mean?
Like we can't say there's causal particle X interacting with particle Y, and then so on and so forth until the wave function collapsed, and now we have the result. Right? There's a sort of a blurred intermediary period that is not measurable, but the result is measurable, right? Like the collapsed result is measurable, but the path it took to get there is not, in terms of causal particle physics.
What is causal particle physics? I've never heard that term.
Like particles interacting with one another to have like measurable results.
That's just particle physics.
That's just called particle physics.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, sure.
So what's causal particle? You're just saying
what is causal particle physics? I've never heard that term.
Causal particle physics is the I guess I'm trying to refer to the part that's not enshrouded in quantum superposition, right? Like there's particle physics that does not involve wave particle duality. You're aware of that, right?
Like what?
Like when electrons fucking bind to the surface of...
Okay. There is literally particle physics and quantum physics. Like there's like
particle physics is a part of quantum mechanics. We utilize quantum mechanics. It's actually quantum field theory.
Not all particles interacting involves quantum equations.
Define particle.
No,
because it would depend on the scale. A grain of sand can be called a particle. That it would be hard. We might be able, because we have not even molecules to be defined by quantum mechanics. If you mean like those are all ways defined by quantum mechanics. They have to be.
No.
Yep.
No.
Give me an example where they're not.
Okay, sure. When electron valence, in terms of
a valence electron, the one that is the most loosely bound, that helps perform other bonds.
How, like,
that's still quantum mechanics.
Ionic bonds, like nucleophilic attack. No, that's specifically not.
Yes, it is. I've worked through the mathematics on it.
No.
It's literally quantum mechanics. You utilize the wave function, Schrodinger's equation. Yes, it's quantum mechanics.
Hold on.
That's extremely true.
Hold on 1 second. Are you actually saying that when strong acids dissociate into hydrogen, like HCl, you dissolve HCl in water? This is the hydrogen, dissociating from the chlorine, is a quantum thing.
Is it the result of quantum mechanical processes?
No.
Can we define it quantum mechanically?
That is absurd. That is absurd.
No, it's not.
Strong acid.
It isn't. You just have a misunderstanding of what quantum mechanics means.
Hydrogen, the proton dissociating. This is the nature of what an acid is.
You mean a proton?
I don't think he understands that literally all of chemistry is the result of quantum mechanics. More specifically, in statistics theorem.
Because it's about studying atoms.
Why don't we invoke wave particle duality when we
It's not invoked.
Because
it's an inherent aspect of reality, and it arises from the mathematics that I believe. Werner Heisenberg. There we go. Couldn't remember his first name. That's why it's called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Wave particle duality isn't something we decide on. It's an inherent aspect.
Okay, is it more applicable when measuring certain things than others in the realm of?
No. It's more or less applicable scale-wise.
This is ridiculous. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. This is ridiculous.
But you're not wording it very well. Then I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but if you're saying that, like, the difference between strong acids and weak acids isn't just simply measurable on like something way more conventionally mechanically observable, you don't have to invoke quantum physics to understand why strong acids dissociate more than weak acids. If you
don't have to, but that's part of the underlying substrate of reality. This is a point that even I can get. LPP, can you be the judge in this? Because I know that you're also
there's a quantum.
I think part of what the line of disagreement is stemming from is, Sunflower, are you saying that the aspects where you're talking about at the higher level, you're talking more in the molecular, atomic and the molecular level versus the quantum level, and that potentially quantum mechanics wouldn't necessarily apply to some of the things that you're referring to? You'd be up in the classical realm. So are you saying you're now talking about things in the classics versus the classical mechanics versus necessarily quantum mechanics?
Exactly. And hydrogen atoms are particles, right? So if you want to differentiate weak acids from strong acids, you don't need to invoke wave functions. Point blank, period.
This lighter is made of protons, but we don't need to. If I throw it, I can use classical mechanics to map.
If I want to know the difference between, if I want to know the difference between a strong acid and a weak acid, I do not need to invoke Schrodinger's equation. Period.
Exactly, but you mentioned particularly within the quantum level of reality that this stuff doesn't always apply. Now you're going to the classical level of reality where you're right. It doesn't apply. We can, however, and have described certain systems that can be described classically in a quantum mechanical sense as well.
Are protons not particles?
This lighter is made of protons, but if I throw it, I can use purely classical mechanics to map its trajectory. That's the divide between the quantum level of reality and the classical level of reality. This lighter still operates quantum mechanically because it's made of frickin' particles. But that doesn't mean that the whole system described as one is defined quantum mechanically. So just because this is made of quantum mechanical bit, and this goes back to the whole emergence thing that Aron was talking about in the debate. And I have to agree with him. It's something a lot of theists really understand.
Okay, wait. But there's a point in which measurability, classical, the way we measure things classically no longer works. Would you agree with that?
Of course, that's the divide.
Yeah, and so how are you distinguishing?
It's called the Heisenberg split. It happens when you can no longer recover classical equations.
Yeah,
it's the same thing as the divide between Newtonian mechanics and Einsteinian relativity.
And what determines the Heisenberg split?
How you mathematically define the system, or what mathematics accurately defines the system. Yes, it is.
The nature of the particle.
What? If you're already talking about particles like quantum particles, and you're already past the split. So the split comes down. It's like I said, it's the same thing between Newtonian mechanics and Einsteinian relativity. There's a split between which one you use to define things, and that all comes down. It's like the difference between Lorentz transformations in special relativity and Galilean transformations in Euclidean geometry, or just basic Newtonian physics. You can recover the Galilean transformations at speed lower than the speed of light, but they do not mathematically give you any really results at all when you apply them at relativistic speeds, because you need to use the Lorentz transformation. So there would be the divide. So that all comes down to how are you mathematically describing the system, and does it give you accurate results? We can recover classical equations at a particular level of reality. And we can and have pushed the boundaries on where that level is. It's not just a defined line. We can kind of, work it a little bit. But that split is still there, and that comes down to the mathematics underlying how you're describing the system.
Can we go back a little bit to where, back closer to the question, or do you want to stay with the quantum mechanics of it?
No, you can go back. It doesn't matter. I'm just kind of moving with the flow here.
I got one.
I did understand with that.
Can we let JC ask a question? He wanted to ask a question quick before we move on.
Yeah, guys, this has been great. I need to bounce because it's late as fuck. But I had a great time talking to you guys.
Yeah, I had a very, very good time talking with you.
Leo, what do you do, man? Are you like a professor of
grad student?
No, I've just been studying these things for 12 years, and I have Asperger's, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I mean, when I say I've read books, but I've also read actual level, graduate level textbooks on this stuff. I've actually done rigorous problem sets on this stuff. So that's.
Leo, so you would say
I do understand them pretty well.
What's the largest particle that is part of a quantum function? Would you say it's
Higgs boson, spirit molecule? Got it.
Part of hold on. What did he? I didn't hear that.
Hey guys, hang on. Hey, Jay-Z, it was great having you, man. Hope you have a great night, and you're welcome back anytime, bro. All right, go ahead, guys.
Ask that again, Sunflower.
Yeah. What's the largest particle that is beyond the Heisenberg split? in terms of it being part of the
define largest, because the only thing I can think of is is mass.
Mass, yeah, mass.
Particles
with
wouldn't
mass.
be like have a physical
Let's
volume.
go with mass.
The top quark, which weighs in at a whopping 173 giga-electron volts over c squared.
Okay, what's on the other side of the Heisenberg split? As in, like so you said the Heisenberg split is the line in which we cross over into quantum, right? Wave function. What's the smallest that's not on that level? So you just stated the largest that's on the bottom side. What's the smallest that's on the top side?
I don't know. I don't know if there really is one definitive thing, because there are classical level things, like I said, that we actually can apply quantum. We've applied that to, I think, things of hundreds of atoms before, and we're capable of describing the system quantum mechanically. Obviously, we use supercomputers to do it, but it depends on our computational power. I mean, and at some point, if you really wanted to, you could probably try to define a basketball through quantum mechanics, but it would be so god-awfully difficult that it wouldn't even be... Technically, you could define everything using quantum mechanics, but at some point you realize that the classical laws that you can recover just work better because it's like taking the whole of all the quantum mechanics you would have to use to define the basketball and combining them into a much simpler mathematical form. That would be classical mechanics. So that would kind of be sort of might define the split. Maybe because there isn't, like I said, line is arbitrary. Actually more of a gradient. Yeah, it's more of a gradient than like a defined line. We can play with it a little bit.
It's just a matter of how much effort and energy you want to put into the measurement system.
Well, at some point you probably would be incapable of, because the device.
Well, then that would be a hard line
to do the
No, that's just the computational line.
Is there a hypothetical? No, there's a hypothetical hard line if the universe can't produce enough energy to compute it.
Well, no, that's not what I was saying.
That's just a limit on how we're measuring it. You're just trying to say that you're right when you know that you're wrong.
I'm not even at this point.
Stop gasping. Can we just move on a little bit, please?
I'm learning. What do you mean? I'm literally learning from this from Leo. I'm not even trying to act like he's wrong. I'm just saying, like, this is at this point. Clearly, you're fucking not. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. If you think I'm trying to get a gotcha, when clearly I've stated several times, wow, that's interesting. I want to hear more. Let's talk about
Sunflower.
it. Well, your ego is the best of you.
Sunflower.
So you sound like a high school dropout. So maybe you mute yourself. Me and Leo will talk.
Sunflower.
And you could learn a few things. Maybe. How about that?
Okay. All right, rant over. Let's move on.
Thank you. So I feel like this whole thing was in service of talking about the mechanics behind doing Sunflower Year thought experiment. If we could just do the thought experiment and just give it the credence without having to try to explain all the stuff behind how it happened. I think your thought experiment, if I can rephrase it, you can tell me if I'm right, is if we can predict the line of if we can predict someone's actions perfectly and then give them a book that has those actions in it, would they be able to deviate from those actions?
Correct.
Okay. So if you involve the giving them the new information, no, they can't. That's just what they're going to do. They read how they react and why they read what they do and how they react, and that's just the end of it.
They're no longer
they can try to fight it.
But wait, but wouldn't you agree though that
they are human? They just your line for what a person is strained and relies on free will.
Let me explain. To your current understanding of, I mean, at least as I'm assuming you're like me in that when you see things, right, when you read things, however much they seem to check out in terms of what you're about to do, you kind of know you can at the very least, out of spite or out of protest, say, no, what, fuck it, I'm not going to do that. If at a certain point you see information and that level of your own, at least your own sense of your own will goes away, you've become
your own sense of your own will doesn't go away by knowing what you're going to do. It's just that everything you're going to do is described beforehand.
Well, yes, it does.
You feel yourself making decisions, right? Yes. The answer is yes.
Well, I feel myself making yes. Okay, yes.
At least we feel that we're making decisions. At least.
But wait, but if I told you, Susan,
it's a bunch of leading questions.
Yeah.
If I told you you were going to walk to the other side of the room and then kneel down and scream, and you were like, "No, I'm not. I'm going to stand right here."
But you're just making a straw manning.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Well,
that
how
I
much?
think because that was a really good thing that you said there, Sunflower. I kind of want to work with that, and I want to see how you guys answer this question because I think I think I might know people that have asked something similar to this, and it's kind of interesting. So, Sunflower, let's say what you just said. You are going to walk into the corner of the room, and you're going to get down on your knees, and you're going to start screaming. If I had done that, how would you be capable? How would you determine whether I did that because you predicted it and it was determined, or whether I just freely chose to do what you said I was going to do because I wanted to see how you were going to react if I did it, thinking that you might have made me do it?
Well,
so how would you differentiate between I did that freely and it was actually determined because you said it?
Great question. Well, I would not. I would not. The only situation in which my thought experiment breaks down is one in which you do something out of other than what I predict. Right, because I'm using a hypothetical supercomputer that is not capable of being wrong. Right, I'm not using a 99.9% accurate. I'm using I have the original position of every subatomic.
We don't need to get into how it works. It just works.
It just works. But the nature of being human, at least as far as I exist, means that no matter what you show me, I can, out of protest or spite or rebellion, say no. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't matter how, right? So that's what I'm saying. So maybe there's some sort of weird singularity where if you actually reach the source code, everyone's brain kind of shuts off and we're no longer existing in this kind of I think I have free will thing. Maybe that's the weird fucking Isaac Asimov fucking Blade Runner future. I'm not even saying that's not possible. I'm just saying, at least as I currently know myself and other humans, we feel as though we have the waking ability to do things out of rebellion or spite, regardless of how completely counter survival they are. Like when you see monks get down on their knees and light themselves on fire and just say, I'm protesting. You don't see other animals generally doing this. So it seems like we have some kind of constantly refreshing, mindful state of the ability to sort of skew our alleged
trajectory.
You're talking about free will, just
trajectory.
Free will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But see, that isn't free. So, are we talking about free will, or are we talking about a soul? Because free will can very easily be.
Sure. I mean, look. If you
because
really
I feel
want
like
to
this argument is the argument that prediction and being able to choose is about free will, and I feel like you're binding free will to the concept of having a soul.
Oh no, I'm not.
Okay.
Let me be clear here. For the sake of this argument, I'm trying to establish a sort of not necessarily paradoxical, but at least I'd say incomprehensible nature of human will. I would never, at least it's not the kind of way I argue, is that even if at the end of the discussion you guys were like, wow, that is kind of weird, I wouldn't be like, oh, well then now you must, surrender to, this certain religion. I argue for things that I am confident in, on a rhetorical level. I have my own personal beliefs, but I wouldn't just abruptly invoke them and be like, whoa, I got you. Now you guys have to enter my religion. I'm just saying, as far as I understand it, myself and other humans have this unique feeling of being able to alter our trajectory, if for no other reason than just to not want to adhere to what people.
Right. We have the ability to choose what to do arbitrarily.
Right.
And we feel ourselves making those decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And you wouldn't see a dog that's you tell the dog to sit, and it's all of a sudden you know what? I'm going to start jumping around on my hind legs, and I'm going to walk into traffic because you know what? I don't want to sit. That. The idea of rebellion in that sense.
Well, rebellion isn't a uniquely human experience. It's
exactly
just something that humans do on occasion. But
I would say it is a uniquely human experience.
Well, yeah, I can't think of anything.
I view all other things besides humans as having a irreducibly very easily understandable behavioral trajectory of pure survival. Whereas humans do things like, squat down, cross their legs, ignite themselves on fire, and then just sit there like I'm protesting the local government. Which at that point I feel like they've transcended some level of like animalistic survival. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of and the same way, like I said, like you can't show it. No matter what you do, you can calculate a dog's behavioral trajectory. You're never going to be able to convey to it what it's going to do in such a way that it interprets it, understands it, and then decides to do something else out of sheer no, you can't tell me what to do. It's that kind of capability of humans that I think distinguishes us. And I'm not going to sit here and say, and therefore you guys must believe in God. I'm just saying that's.
Well, I'm not saying that, but I feel like you're writing a hard line between commanding someone.
Can I ask a quick question?
A course of action. Yeah.
Or rather make a point. Wouldn't the fact that we can make seemingly more arbitrary decisions than other animals be due to the fact that we have a higher level of cognition and a much more thoroughly developed, I can't remember what part of the brain it is.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We can look at the brains of various different creatures and see that they have some level of, like, the word I like to use is agency, but that ours is obviously probably one of the most advanced that we've seen. But we have seen, like in elephants and dolphins and like orangutans and bonobos and numerous other creatures where they're not quite on our level, but they're pretty darn close. But the one thing that seems consistent is that we find in our brains certain areas are more developed than they would be in other creatures, and that seems to be why, at least according to all of the data that we have, that we don't see the levels of cognition and emotional intelligence and things like that that we do in humans, despite still seeing it in animals. It's because our brains are much more developed, or at least parts of our brains are much more developed than theirs are, to allow for those higher order consciousness, that higher order cognition that we have as humans.
Yes. Excellent point. Absolutely. And that's why I kind of, in my mind, when I see a purely, electronic, if someone can make a computer, right, electronic parts, if they can make something, and we already know AI is like pretty advanced, but at any point in the future, if someone can program or create a artificial intelligence that's capable of the level of variance in terms of what seems to be agency and just sheer personal will, right? Like create a computer that sits down and lights himself on fire. I know I keep going back to that, but it's one of the most compelling examples in my opinion. Find a computer that kneels down, closes its eyes, goes into a meditation pose, and just self-immolates in order to protest what they feel is a moral wrong. And then honestly, at that point, I would probably lose some sort. I don't know for sure, but I feel like that would be like the linchpin in humans might just be advanced computers after all, or something.
Giving a computer moral.
What's that?
Giving a computer morals.
Right. It's the idea of intelligence. Intelligence.
No, but that's different than a human having. That's not. We're talking about things that are similar, but not the same thing. Right now, we're talking.
Well, I consider moral agency to be the distinguishing quality of humans. The fact that we're intelligent is almost incidental, in my opinion. I mean, you could have a stupid moral agent, or you could have an extremely intelligent, Siri on your iPhone that obviously has no moral agency at all. So what I'm saying is the moral agency and the sort of seemingly is it accidental? The fact that we're also the most intelligent beings? I don't know. I'm not gonna go there, but it's the idea that we all feel like we're constantly in a state of being able to alter or skew our trajectories for.
Is somebody playing with dice or rolling something?
My hands are free.
Sorry, that was
not me.
There's some really annoying clicking.
I'll stop. I'm sorry, that was me.
Yeah. So that's what I think is a distinguishing factor. So yeah, I guess it's an interesting conversation, but that the intelligence is almost like a weird coincidence. Like, oh, Well, we're the only we're the only species that seems to have moral agency, and we also happen to be the most intelligent species by far. Did one thing come from the other? I don't know. Are they both kind of, they arise to say, I don't know. I don't have any interest in terms of that.
We do observe moral agency in other animals, giraffes, lions, dogs, elephants.
Have you ever seen another animal self-immolate, kneel down and go into a meditation position?
Can a human self-immolate? Can I just burst into flames?
Well, no, but you can douse yourself in gasoline and then.
So we can use tools.
Yes, and we have observed.
It's the idea of like literally causing yourself the maximum physical suffering as a form of protest. What other animal? What other animal does that?
I disagree with that. The monk that enters the burning, when they burn themselves, they enter meditation. They're not suffering in the way you think.
Oh, that even further proves my point. Then I'm not like, okay, what animal can actually transcend like their physical body in such a way like that actually further proves my point.
Well, if it is an experience, if it's a mystical experience that the monk undergoes, it may not just be inherent to human beings. It could be universal to all species. We may not know that animals undergo it, but we could study it more. We could find out that yes, it may, just like DMT is in all life. They associate those mystical states with natural occurrence of DMT. We all produce it. It's in all forms of life, and it's in the grass, it's in the trees, it's in everything. And it could be that it's universal.
I'm not even disputing that. Look, if there might come a time where when we observe what we used to see as an animal doing something like silly or weird, and then we might gain enough information as though they were actually like so compelled by some sense of will that it's akin to a monk, transcending and reaching nirvana and detaching themselves. Maybe I'm the last person to say that that's never going to happen. I'm just saying I'm observing humans doing certain things that makes me think that their baseline level of phenomenology or consciousness seems to transcend all other species
with psychedelics and
yeah, I don't know.
Throughout the ages.
Okay, I didn't know if that was just me or not.
I could not hear either.
No, he timed out for a second. You back, man? Cliffe?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if I went out. Maybe my internet, but
it timed out.
Yeah, no. I was just saying that there's been psychedelic studies at high doses with volunteers, and they've shown that they can mimic these mystical states of consciousness that mystics have talked about for millennia. That you can find in the scriptures of all the world's major religions. And I chimed in to back up Sunflower. I thought he was trying to say something along the lines of Albert Einstein. He adhered to hard determinism, and he felt that quantum indeterminacy was just our lack of precision in our own measurements, that we just, we didn't have the right tools to measure what we're trying to figure out. And so he felt that hard determinism is the ultimate truth. We're just not smart enough to realize it. I think that's what Sunflower is trying to get at, but I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, well, there was a couple other people that worked with Einstein on that. Einstein wrote, okay, it's EPR, Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosenberg, something like that. I don't know. And then they developed what they called their EPR paradox, but a series of experiments that have been thoroughly repeated and verified that were done initially by John Stuart Bell did confirm non-locality.
Just to clarify my position, I'm not a hard determinist, actually, Cliffe. I'm sorry to break that to you. I was essentially saying, what I was trying to do was, I was saying that if a determinist or a pure naturalist invokes, and look, this is just I'm stating my opinion this could be, of course, wrong, but I'm just clarifying. If a hard determinist or a pure naturalist invokes a certain state of matter as being at some point in time immeasurable, I view that as the perfect medium for God to have his hands tied up in to effectively have a supernatural effect on the world. It's like sort of saying like, well, we can measure everything, but there's some things that we can only measure probabilistically. Well, it's like if there was a God and he wanted to conceal his hand in a way that the natural world could never prove or disprove, that would be it. There would be some kind of like just immeasurable sequence on the very, very micro scale that's where he would do it. Because obviously, like, you know, we don't just observe like object, like, you know, the ceiling doesn't like cave in on itself and then like bounce back. Like Donnie Darko is not a documentary, okay? the physical world in macro scale cannot just bend in and out, but maybe through some kind of very, very, very nuanced sequence of immeasurable quantum things, we would never even know. You know, it's like, well, it seems like it was improbable for it to end up that way, but it did, or that's what we predicted, and that's what happened. I don't know. I was invoking that, not to say that I believe in hard determinism, but to say that if hard determinism is true, there should not be, in my opinion, anything inherently unknowable if you have sufficient information.
Yeah, no, I think it's a
jump
fair
in
point.
really quick to say that I am gonna. It's getting late. My battery on my laptop's starting to die, so I'm gonna take off. Everybody, great conversation. Sue Stoneham and Sunflower, LPP. I hopefully you're not asleep. Thanks for letting me come in and have a good discussion with everybody.
Leo,
guys,
great to talk to you, man. Sorry if I ever like got a little bit raised my voice. You're a really, really smart guy. Super interesting to talk to. I really appreciated talking to you, and so yeah. Sorry if I got a little bit like jumpy at times.
No, that happens. See, I understand passion in discussions. I always say I don't think it's ever a problem until either people start getting really loud and talking over each other, or insults start flying around. Then we've got problems. But that didn't happen. So a little bit of talking over, but I think that was more just excitement than anything. But yes, it was a very, very good discussion since I've been in here. And again, thanks to LPP for letting me come into his stream and have a conversation with you guys. You guys,
I would have loved to speak to you a little bit longer, Leo Phileas, man. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, it's starting to get late here, and I've got like 30 minutes left on my laptop battery, and it's good to run them dead every now and then, but I don't like to do it all the time. But you guys take it easy.
You too, Leo Phileas.
Yeah, man. Take care. I mean, with that.
No, thank you for clarifying.
If there's anything pressing, I'd be down to at least address something for the next few minutes. But I honestly, that was a good cue for me to probably head out to. But if someone has any pressing questions, I'd be willing to address them. And just as a disclaimer, just kind of the way I tend to debate and discuss is way more impromptu and real time. I do better with like hearing a point, making a counterpoint, hearing a counterpoint, making a counterpoint. Rather than, I'm not a huge fan of like preparing some kind of like long form like essay and reciting it. I more thrive on the back and forth. So that's kind of why that's just how I usually do things. It's not because I'm trying to be just like a pest. It's just that it's naturally how I am. But
you don't gotta apologize for how you've been engaging in this conversation. You've been engaging very well in this conversation. I think like we disagree, but I think you've been engaging well.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize, Susan. I did at one point.
You don't gotta apologize.
I was a little nervous at some point, and look, that's something I'm working on always. I'm still a little bit new. I only became engaged in like the on YouTube debate format in like the last 2 months, and I don't know. I have fun with it, and if I ever do say something rude, I'm always apologetic. I'm never the kind to hold grudges. So, anyway, thanks LPP. Thanks Cafe, Susanem, Leo Phyllis, everyone. It's been fun, and next time I hope to come a little bit more composed, maybe. But nonetheless, I thought we had actually some really, really interesting discussions.
It definitely got. It was definitely an interesting conversation across the board. I think a lot of this stuff. I get kind of irritated with folks when people either just refuse to even contemplate the stuff, or take extremely rigid positions on either side. It's like, or misinterpret it as you are taking one. It's like, hey, we can propose hypotheticals, and that's the whole point. It's a freaking hypothetical. It doesn't have to turn into dogmatic arguments,
Right. But nonetheless, man, hey, LPP, thanks so much for sticking around and at least hosting us, despite the fact that you were frustrated. Letting us talk it out. That's a real sign of passion and care for the platform, because a lot of people would have just ended the stream or kick people, and that's huge.
Oh man, dude, I was just like, I need to take a break, man. I've been I had work I had to get done. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, man, I've been talking for a while. I'm like, okay, I'm taking a break. You guys can keep going, but I'm just chilling for a minute. I'm gonna get a drink, come back, and chill out, because that's But yeah, I get your point, man. On the
it might seem like nothing to you, but a lot of people would have rage quit, closed the stream, kicked everyone. It's like I just
actually, I don't think I have rage quit.
I've never seen you do it either.
In my stuff. I mean, I kicked a few people out, but I've never just shut down the stream and I'm out of here. I think that's very.
Very
not
you, but I've seen it happen. But
no, I've seen it happen too. I'm like, that's very juvenile. It's like, we should be able to have conversation. Now, if you're going to be a jackass, then I'm going to boot you.
Right.
I don't know if you guys saw in the MDD debate, Mark Reed was like, nobody go to John's channel. He just mutes you and kicks you out. It's like, dude, I literally let you be on the stream for 2 hours the other day. And you kept talking over people. I kept having to put you on mute. We had to go to freaking timed responses.
Yeah,
and now you're going to sit here and tell everybody that I mute everybody. I will mute you, but usually I let people keep talking after we get things back in.
Oh, you're very, very fair.
In order, hey, your turn. Yeah, okay, let's have time. Who's next? That kind of stuff. And then sometimes I'll let it go into free discussion, let y'all talk over each other. But yeah, I usually try to let everybody at least have a modicum of conversation, unless there's going to be a complete idiot. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
But
all right. Anyway, though, yeah, I'm heading out, guys. So thanks. It's been real. Yeah, everyone here is awesome and has my love. So take care, and until next time.
Right on. Have a good night.
Watch you later.
Okay, I am starting to get pretty tired though on that.
Yeah,
point.
I think I am.
Anybody else have anything else they want to talk about before we call it a night?
No.
I'll save it for another time, man. Go for it. You can call it a night.
All right, awesome, man. Well, everybody, appreciate you coming to the stream, putting up with all the craziness that goes down in these after shows. It's always a fun time. For those of you still listening, I would recommend tomorrow you come tune in to my interview with Dr. Rob Stadler. It'll be at 3:15 tomorrow. We will be discussing his book, The Scientific Approach to Evolution, what they didn't teach you in biology, and dive into a very, very, very interesting book that he wrote on actually applying the scientific method and the standards of the high standards for research that apply in pretty much every other aspect of science, and how they apparently just kind of get ignored in relation to evolutionary theory. And his book's very fascinating, and you won't want to miss that interview. And then something else coming up this week that you should know about. I don't know. It's too late having a brain freeze. But yeah, you don't want to miss that. 3:15 Central Time. So 4:15 Eastern. Got it already set up, so you can go set yourself a notification. But you won't miss that interview. And hope everyone has a great night. Enjoy yourselves. We had a good Labor Day weekend. And keep on trucking, folks. Life goes on, and make the most of your existence. And always remember, as you search for explanations, make sure your conclusions are logical, plausible, and probable. Have a great night, y'all.